Chapter 1859. Didi, how do you feel now? Chen Zhao asked. Do you feel uncomfortable? No, I feel good. Didi looked at the vast sea, which was also rapidly retreating. Just then, two fighter jets appeared in front of them. With Chen Zhao's current speed, he must have been discovered by the satellites. Plus, the Americans must have recognized that Chen Zhao was the one who destroyed Nightingale. So they didn't hold back this time, and sent two fighter jets. The two fighter jets had appeared nearby. They must have taken off from an aircraft carrier. There should be a fleet nearby. Chen Zhao didn't want to fight with them. After all, he had Didi with him. Didi, let's go into the ocean now. Chen Zhao immediately lowered his altitude. Then he split the surface and dove into the ocean. Chen Zhao couldn't dive into the ocean like usual. After all, if he charged into the ocean at such a high speed, the huge inertia would break Didi's limbs. So Chen Zhao entered the ocean in a gentle way. Chen Zhao controlled the seawater and traveled through it. After traveling for more than 10 minutes, he reappeared on the surface of the ocean. We're about to reach the Hawaiian Islands, Chen Zhao reminded. Let's go take some pictures there. Didi had never been to Hawaii before. He was quite excited now. But it's night now, Chen Zhao said. Hawaii is famous for its sunny beaches, so there's nothing fun here. My whole family will come again next time. I understand. Didi replied in a considerate manner. Right now the Hawaiian beach was silent. Didi picked up a shell. Uncle, help me put it away. Chen Zhao looked at the shell. There was nothing special about it. However, he still put the shell away. Next stop Mount Fuji, Chen Zhao said. Passenger Miss Didi, please get ready. The flight is about to depart. Whoosh! Instantly, Chen Zhao set off again, heading straight for Mount Fuji. Didi wanted to go around the world. But if it was just going around, it would be meaningless. Chen Zhao wanted to go to some landmarks or scenic spots. Hawaii was about 6,000 kilometers away from Japan. In less than 20 minutes, Chen Zhao brought Didi to the sky above Mount Fuji. This is Japan's Mount Fuji. Do you see that forest? That's the Aoki Plains Forest Sea. That barren area was left behind after a great battle between me and a supreme demon. Didi looked at Mount Fuji in amazement. He also looked at the forest that Chen Zhao was pointing at. Will it be cold? No, I'm fine. At this moment, a red light pierced through the air. Chen Zhao's eyes narrowed. It was none other than the nine-tailed fox Tamamonome. Soon, Tamamonome arrived before Chen Zhao. Although Tamamonome was in human form, the 9 tails on her back were very obvious. Chen Zhao, are you here to fight me? Tamamonome's lips curled up in a smile. She's the peerless great Yao that fought against me. Chen Zhao glanced at Tamamonome. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to travel the world with my daughter. Tamamonome stared at Chen Zhao, as if trying to determine if he was telling the truth. However, Chen Zhao and Didi did not linger here. They went straight to their next destination. Tamamonome looked at Chen Zhao's departing figure and cursed. You run fast. Although she was unhappy that Chen Zhao came and left in such a hurry, she really could not do anything about his speed. In the blink of an eye, Chen Zhao had left Japan. According to the normal route, Chen Zhao's next stop should be Wuxia. But after careful consideration, Chen Zhao gave up on this idea. If Chen Zhao entered Wuxia in this state, neither the military nor the spiritual world would be happy. Chen Zhao could do whatever he wanted abroad, but he couldn't do the same in Wuxia. So Chen Zhao decided to avoid Wuxia in the end. He followed the East Sea, passed the Shisha and Shisha Islands, and entered Vietnam. Just then, Chen Zhao suddenly realized that there seemed to be a battle below. It wasn't a battle between normal people. It was a battle between the spiritual world. In Chen Zhao's original plan, Vietnam was not their stop. Chen Zhao planned to pass through Vietnam and enter Cambodia to see Angkor Wat. But the battle below still attracted Chen Zhao's attention. There was a muddy river below. It should be a tributary of the Mekong River. On the river, there were a dozen boats of various sizes and hundreds of spiritualists. Looking down from the sky, Chen Zhao could clearly see something swimming under the water. It was very large and long, at least 70 to 80 meters long. Chen Zhao suddenly thought of the blood-red mission, Mekong River Monster. That thing suddenly emerged from the surface of the water, and then directly knocked over a ship on the water. The people on the boat all fell into the water. Then the thing started eating. Those who fell into the water were all spiritualists. They weren't strong or weak, but in the water, they were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Chen Zhao could clearly see that it wasn't a dragon at all. It was more like a huge sick eel. Chen Zhao could feel that this super eel had a very thick demonic aura. It seemed to be a powerful demon. Moreover, Chen Zhao could feel a strong electrical energy from it. "No, we can't continue fighting on the water," an Asian man shouted. "This is the monster's home field. We have to find a way to lure it to land or shallow water." Boom! Just then, there was an earth-shattering sound. A bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Another boat was split in half. The people on the boat were turned into charcoal. "Damn, this monster can't be defeated. Send a signal to the other boats to retreat. We can't continue like this. If this continues, we'll all be wiped out." Is there no way at all? "It's possible on land, but it's impossible on the water." Huishian shook his head. "Fine." The people on the boat were more complicated. There were blonde foreigners, but most of them were Asian. The consecutive losses made them lose their will to fight. The boat started to reach the shore, but the underwater attacks continued. Lightning also fell from the sky every now and then. After arriving at the shore, everyone scrambled to get ashore. As soon as Huishian got off the boat, she saw two people standing on the shore. One was a huge giant. It was clearly a strengthening spell. The other was wearing strange equipment and a helmet. She couldn't see her face clearly. Judging from her figure, she should be a young girl. Weren't these two from this team? Chapter 1860. Friend you are? Huishian was the leader of the team, but he didn't know these two. Therefore, he cupped his fists and greeted them. However, he guessed that these two people in front of him were most likely here to participate in the Scarlet mission. Just then, the river started churning again. The huge figure of the water monster was faintly discernible. It looked like it was going to rush ashore. "Oh no, the water monster is close to the shore. Move back." Alarmed, Huishian hurriedly told his companions to move back. Only Chen Zhao and Didira stood still. "Didira, wait here. I'll be right back." "Okay." Didira nodded. When Huishian retreated, he looked back at Chen Zhao and Didira. "Why are you still standing there? Hurry up and retreat." Huishian waved her hands and feet and shouted. However, he saw that the person didn't seem to realize the danger. He continued walking toward the river. By then, the water monster had reached the shore and poked its huge head out of the water. The water monster's body released a high-energy electric current. Dark clouds filled the sky. Affected by the water monster, they kept releasing electricity. Chen Zhao was huge, but compared to the water monster, he was like an ant compared to an elephant. Huishian gasped. This was his first time seeing the water monster's true appearance. The others were the same. The water monster was scarier than they'd imagined. A power that could cause a celestial phenomenon was absolutely powerful no matter where it was. Chen Zhao looked at the water monster. This big eel should be half a step into the Shangqing realm. However, it was limited by the water. If it left the water, its power would be greatly reduced. But even so, its strength wasn't something that those people could match. The water monster pounced at Chen Zhao, its huge mouth going for his head. Chen Zhao punched the monster's head from below. Bang! Half of the monster's head was smashed. Everyone's jaws dropped as they stared at Chen Zhao in shock. Instant kill. That terrifying water monster had been instantly killed by this person? Just when everyone was in disbelief, the water monster suddenly moved again. The water monster suddenly moved again, and then its exposed body suddenly shrunk back into the water. At the same time, the damaged part of its head began to heal rapidly. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. This water monster's healing ability was so strong. He was not much weaker than Tamamo no Mei. Half of his head had been smashed off, yet he was still alive. Chen Zhao jumped into the water. In an instant, the river began to churn violently, creating huge waves that reached the sky. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the sky, and thunder fell continuously. Everyone looked at the raging waves of the river in horror. Rumble. None of them had ever seen a battle of this level. Even though they had more than 10 ships, and more than 100 spiritualists working together previously, it was still impossible for them to survive. The water monster also didn't display its true strength. In the water, Chen Zhao kept beating up the water monster. The water monster was very similar to Chen Zhao. He possessed the attributes of water and lightning, and at the same time, he had a strong physical body. It was the same for Chen Zhao, but his control over water wasn't as good as the water monster's, while lightning was stronger. Therefore, they were basically equal in these two aspects. However, Chen Zhao's level was higher than the water monster. His physical strength far surpassed that of the water monster. The water monster felt it too, so it started to run away. Chen Zhao couldn't deal a fatal blow to the water monster. The strongest thing about the water monster was its self-healing ability. It was almost at Tamamo no Mei's level. Chen Zhao took out the black trident. The water monster instantly bristled and twisted its body even harder. It felt the threat of the black trident. It was a fatal threat. Chen Zhao stabbed the trident into the water monster's head. The moment the black trident pierced the monster's head, the terrifying power started killing the monster's cells. Chen Zhao twisted the black trident in his hand, and the monster's head was blown apart. In the murky water, Chen Zhao sensed two familiar energy sources. Chen Zhao fished in the water. Two internal cores that radiated the power of water and lightning fell into his hands. The two cores were similar to old turtles. However, the difference between the two was billions of times. Nevertheless, the two cores were useless to Chen Zhao. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't want to waste them, so he put away the internal cores and the water monster's body. Hu Yixian and the others looked at the river. It continued to churn for half an hour. Suddenly there was silence. Was the battle over? Everyone waited for the result. Who lost? Who won? Or was it a draw? Finally, a figure flew out of the river. A pillar of water exploded from the water. Everyone saw Chen Zhao's figure rise into the air, and then land on them. Hu Yixian walked over in large strides. This time, he didn't put his hands together. Instead, he cupped his hands and bowed. "Sir, how is the water monster?" "Dead," Chen Zhao answered indifferently. Hearing Chen Zhao's fluent Chinese, Hu Yixian's heart jumped. He must be a spiritualist from China. "Sir, may I know your name?" Hu Yixian asked. To Hu Yixian, Chen Zhao was most likely a top master in China. Although Chen Zhao looked very young in the form of the mighty miracle god, Chen Zhao was still very young. But to Hu Yixian, Chen Zhao was most likely an old man. "No," Chen Zhao said indifferently. He turned to Didi. "Didi, sit on my arm. Let's go." Hu Yixian was stunned for a moment. Why did this old senior suddenly speak English? Didi sat on Chen Zhao's arm, and Chen Zhao shot into the air. Even the pressure from Chen Zhao's departure was unbearable. Who is he? A spiritualist from China? So powerful. So scary. As expected of the most active supernatural region in the world. He's like a god. Who, do you know where he's from? I don't know. That senior doesn't want to reveal his information. The remaining people were all amazed. That unbelievable power made them gasp in amazement. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao's unapproachable attitude made it impossible for them to befriend him. By now, Chen Zhao had reached the border of Vietnam. In the blink of an eye, he was in Cambodia. Chen Zhao paused for a moment to check his position and confirm the direction. Next is Angkor Wat. Didi, do you know Angkor Wat? No. Uncle, what's Angkor Wat? Angkor Wat was more like a Buddhist city than a temple. Angkor Wat was built by Suryavarman II in the 12th century and worshipped Vishnu. In Hinduism, Vishnu was the guardian of order among the three major gods. Buddhism itself was born from Hinduism. After it was introduced to China, it evolved into Zen to adapt to Chinese politics and customs. Chapter 1861. Chen Zhao deactivated his Titan form and had Didi put away his equipment. After all, this was a cultural heritage of mankind. He had to respect it. It was still nighttime in North America, but Cambodia was 12 hours ahead of North America. It was already noon. There were quite a lot of tourists here. Chen Zhao and Didi strolled around Angkor Wat like ordinary tourists. After staying in Angkor Wat for more than an hour, the two left again and went to the next place. They left Cambodia, crossed the Gulf of Thailand, entered the Myanmar Sea, and then past the Bay of Bengal. Then they crossed India and entered the Arabian Sea. Chen Zhao and Didi did not stay in India. In Chen Zhao's impression, this was a dirty and messy country. More importantly, it was extremely unfriendly to women. They passed the Arabian Sea, entered the Gulf of Aden, entered the Red Sea, and then turned into Egypt. They had to go to the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Sphinx before coming to Egypt. This was the evidence left behind by the world's oldest civilization. Ancient Egypt and Egypt were not the same civilization. It was still morning in Egypt. They could barely see anyone. However, there were still Egyptian relics protection agencies here. So the two had to be more careful. After getting close to the Great Pyramid of Giza and taking pictures of the Sphinx, the two had breakfast in Cairo. Then they entered the Mediterranean Sea and crossed the European continent. Their next stop was England. Hey, Xian Li, where are you in England now? Uncle, we're in Edinburgh. Why do you ask? Are you in England too? Xian Li's voice sounded a little tired and sleepy. Not yet, but we'll be there soon. Okay. What time are you arriving? About 10 minutes later. What? Just then Xian Li received a photo. Didi had sent it to her. 20 minutes later, with dark circles under her eyes, Xian Li watched Chen Zhao and Didi descend from the sky. Uncle Didi, how come you're here? And you chose this time too. Look at the time. It's already 6. Although it was already 6 o'clock in the morning, England was still quiet at the moment. We're traveling around the world, me and Didi. Sister Xinli, we have been to Hawaii, Mount Fuji in Japan, and then we went to Vietnam. We saw the water monster there. And then we went to Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Oh right, before we came to England, we also took pictures on the top of the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Sphinx in Egypt. After that, we went to Cairo for breakfast. Xian Li's face was filled with shock. You're going to travel around the world just like that? Yeah. Chen Zhao nodded. Do you want to give up on your plan? I'll bring you along. Xian Li rolled her eyes. Uncle. All right. I'm just giving you an idea. I'm not forcing you. Shall I rouse them all? Asked Sherlock. There's no need. Xian Li wondered in her heart why she was the only one called up. When they reached a remote area, Chen Zhao and Didira stopped. Okay, we should go. Chen Zhao returned to his Jin form. Didi, we should go home. After all, this trip around the world was short, and it was mainly an impromptu idea. Along the way, they had skipped too many places worth stopping at. They left England and entered the North Atlantic Ocean. The target is in the North Atlantic Ocean. I repeat, the target is in the North Atlantic Ocean. What exactly is that thing? Is it China's secret weapon? Can't detect it. The target's main body is enveloped by a huge energy. Where is the Atlantic Fleet now? The Atlantic Fleet is currently at longitude 45, 5455, dimension 45, 66547, approaching the target's route. Order the Atlantic Fleet to intercept the target. Permission to fire freely. Target is approaching the Atlantic Fleet. The target is hiding in the sea again. What exactly is that thing? It can move in both the sky and the sea. Lost track of the target. Chen Zhao was so annoyed by the American fleet. They were too nosy. But this also meant that the American defense was indeed strong. Chen Zhao had originally planned to land on the East Coast and then take a detour back to Los Angeles. But now it seemed that if he entered American territory like this, it would probably provoke the Americans. It was very likely to provoke the nerves of the Americans, who might directly hit him with a nuclear warhead. So, Chen Zhao decided to take a detour and enter the Gulf of Mexico. Then he passed through the Mexican border. After that, he entered the Pacific Ocean again. Then he moved in the sea and returned to Minhua Villa in Los Angeles. Whoosh, I'm home. Chen Zhao let out a long sigh. Although this trip around the world was more daunting than dangerous, Chen Zhao still considered it. He should learn some methods to avoid radars or satellites. Otherwise, he would be caught by radars or satellites every time he moved at high speed. Plus, with the Americans' overbearing habits, he would be harassed every time. It was really hard to guard against them. Is it still night in Los Angeles? Didi looked at Minhua Villa in the night. It's almost morning. Chen Zhao patted Didi's head. Go rest. Uncle, Can you take me to travel around the world in the future? Of course. Chen Zhao looked at Didi seriously. Didi, I'm not the kind of person who knows how to talk to people. But I hope that you can truly accept me and Fei Lai. What you're worried about won't happen. No matter what happens, we won't abandon you. Didi lowered his head, and then looked up again. He silently reached out and hugged Chen Zhao. Can you let me go? I'm not good at dealing with situations like this. Chen Zhao said awkwardly, but Didi didn't let go. Fine if you want to hug me, Chen Zhao said helplessly. Uncle, I'm hungry. You seem to have just had breakfast. I'm just hungry. The underlings are already working. See what's in the kitchen. Bring some to me too. Chen Zhao and Didi took some food and sat on the dragon's head, watching the sun rise from the horizon. The light was dazzling. Satisfaction was written all over Didi's face. I'm going to watch the sun rise every day. You eat so much. You need to exercise more. Uncle, I won't get fat just from eating. Every fat person thinks that. And then they become fat without realizing it. In the morning, Fei Lai woke up and saw Chen Zhao and Didi sitting on the dragon's head. Chen Didi, did you finish your trip around the world? Of course, Auntie, we went around the world. And we also went to a lot of places. Didi excitedly talked about the night's journey. Chapter 1862. Chen Zhao and Fei Lai hoped that their children would know how to make requests. They wouldn't think that it was already a great kindness to adopt you. But you still dared to make requests. A group of kids surrounded Didi, asking her about her trip around the world. Chen Zhao took out a few pieces of eel and barbecued them. Jerlin had been sleeping, but when she smelled the grilled eel, she immediately rushed out. Dad, I want to eat, I want to eat. Not just Jerlin, but all the kids were drooling. Wait. After all, Chen Zhao hadn't tried the food yet. He didn't know if it was harmful. So Chen Zhao didn't dare to give it to the kids. Chen Zhao finished the grilled eel in a few bites. Jerlin burst into tears. Dad, you're so naughty. You didn't even give it to Jerlin. Chen Zhao looked at Jerlin as he ate the roasted eel. If you keep crying, there won't be any food. Look, brother and sister aren't crying. Even little Larissa isn't crying. Are you embarrassed to cry? Jerlin pouted and looked at Chen Zhao angrily. Dad, if you don't give it to me, I'll cry, I'll cry. Okay, there's more. There's a lot more. After confirming that there was nothing wrong with the eel, Chen Zhao took out more. He had to admit that the more powerful they were, the better the meat. Chen Zhao suspected that these powerful creatures were all strengthening their meat. Just then, Portia came and saw Chen Zhao barbecuing with the kids. Boss, it's only morning. You're already barbecuing? Come and help, Chen Zhao said. He stood up and gave Portia the grill spot. Boss, I'm your assistant, not your maid. Steven called me yesterday and said that you acted like a piece of shit during the audition. He's considering if he should recommend more movie roles for you. Portia was speechless. She sat before the grill and started barbecuing. Take care of them today. Didi, help Portia look after the siblings too. I'm going out for a bit. Okay, uncle. Go do what you need. Do you need me to bring anything? Snacks. I want snacks. I want fries and Coke. I want cake. I have too many snacks at home. I can't buy any more. Chen Zhao went straight to the headquarters of the supernatural organization. After arriving at the headquarters, Chen Zhao went to find West. West, give this heroic spirit notebook to Wang Sieg. West flipped open the heroic spirit's notebook and saw the records. West was speechless. President, you went to Vietnam last night? I was passing by and happened to run into the Mekong River monster, Chen Zhao said. So I took care of it. West smiled bitterly. The difference in strength was just that big. No matter how hard the members of the association worked, they were still running around for every Scarlet mission. And he might not even be able to handle it. Every mission required a lot of preparation and screening. However, Chen Zhao had gone to Vietnam and completed a red mission. Guild leader, although you've completed one Scarlet quest, we won't change our plans for the other 2 Scarlet quests, Aqua Rose said, shaking her head. Up to you. This Mekong River water monster mission will be a backup. West thought for a moment before nodding and putting away the heroic spirit notebook. West, put a new track for the ballistic testing device. It's too short. I use it to measure speed. But it's not good. The acceleration distance isn't enough. Okay, the association has money now. After completing the Nordic Giant mission, Wuxia had transferred some money to the association. I plan to renovate the headquarters. What do you think, President? Sure. Chen Zhao nodded. You decide. Then I'll contact your construction friend. Okay. Chen Zhao nodded. How about later? I'm planning to build a private airport too. I can ask him to build it together and save some money. There was a difference in the price of a project being constructed together and separately. Both Chen Zhao and the supernatural organization had a lot of money in their accounts. But Chen Zhao felt that he should save as much as he could. Okay. When do you plan on leaving for the next Scarlet Quest? About a week later. I'll have to let you take care of the headquarters again. Chen Zhao saw that the headquarters would only come once every few days. Aduz was mainly in charge of guarding it. Same rules. Call me if you need anything. Don't force yourself. Got it. By the way, President, do you know about the Battle of Holy Glory? Yes. Last time, Zhang Tianyi told me that he wanted you guys to participate and give you a few spots. I didn't take it. Why not? Stunned, West looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. Why would you take it? There's no reward. It's just a useless title of Holy Glory. It's not permanent either. It's only for 10 years. I can't think of any benefits. What a pity. This was supposed to be a chance for our people to interact with the world's top spiritualists. Wes wasn't trying to increase his fame. He had the same idea as Chen Zhao. They both wanted to keep a low profile. But now, he wasn't sure how big the difference was between the people of the association and the world's top spiritualists. So if he had a chance to participate in this event, he would have a platform to interact with the top spiritualists. Having a platform to communicate with those top-notch spiritualists would also allow him to know what level they were at. In the North American region, the supernatural organization's power was already the top organization. But West also knew that there were even more powerful organizations and forces outside of North America. The strength of those organizations was not to be underestimated. Of course, the most powerful person in the supernatural organization was definitely Chen Zhao, the president. After all, Chen Zhao could already talk to the world's top 23rd generation Blood Mary and Zhang Tianyi of Dragon Tiger Mountains, Celestial Masters sect on equal footing. But the balance of power in the supernatural organization was out of balance. Chen Zhao was unbelievably powerful, but the organization didn't have the power to crush everything. Most of the time, they still needed Chen Zhao to support them. For example, when they went on a Scarlet mission, Chen Zhao's line was always to inform him if there was trouble. West and the members of the organization had always wanted to catch up to Chen Zhao, but the gap was getting bigger and bigger. Chen Zhao's power made them feel despair every time. Are there any tickets? I asked Zhang Tianyi too. Are there? He told me to scram. Chen Zhao shrugged helplessly. President, ask Mr. Zhang if he can participate anonymously. Wes still hadn't given up on the idea of participating. Okay, I'll ask. Chapter 1863. After leaving the headquarters, Chen Zhao went to the supermarket. He wondered if he should ask Winnip to open a supermarket near Mingyue Villa. Of course, this idea was basically impossible unless Chen Zhao was willing to pay for it. Mingyue Villa was too remote. It was more than 30 kilometers away from the city. There were only roads along the way. There were no other buildings. Very few people walked on the roads. The kids at home had asked him to buy snacks, but Chen Zhao had rejected them. Nevertheless, he still planned to buy some snacks. Of course, the little referred to hundreds of snacks and happy otaku water. Carbonated drinks were said to be unhealthy. However, children also needed a certain amount of sugar when they were growing. Children like to eat sweets because they contain a lot of sugar. Nutrition was a very complicated field of study. It was even more complicated than medicine. Moreover, children of different ages had different nutritional requirements. Of course, when Chen Zhao and Fei Lai were at home, they would barbecue and drink beer. As long as one didn't overeat, the so-called junk food and happy otaku water wouldn't harm the body. Chen Zhao pushed the shopping cart out of the supermarket. Suddenly, A scene appeared in Chen Zhao's shadow eye. Chen Zhao took a step back. The snacks on the cart exploded. Another sniper? Who was it this time? The other party's movements were very fast, and after a single strike, he didn't care whether he hit the target or not. He hid behind cover. Chen Zhao's shadow eye only saw an instant. He didn't even have time to identify his surroundings. However, from the bullet's trajectory, Chen Zhao could roughly confirm the direction. There were a few buildings in that direction that could be a sniper's temporary base. This was the first time Chen Zhao's shadow eye couldn't catch the enemy. Previously, Chen Zhao could even sense it from the International Space Station. But the shadow eye, which had always worked, actually met its Waterloo today. Of course, it wasn't a Waterloo. It was mainly because the enemy was well trained. If the enemy stared at Chen Zhao for 3 more seconds, Chen Zhao would be able to catch them. He was ambushed, but he couldn't even catch the enemy. Chen Zhao was depressed. Chen Zhao stood there and waited for a long time. He hoped that the enemy would attack again. But he didn't see the enemy attack again. In the end, he could only leave in disappointment. He knows there's a sniper, but he's still standing there. Jax glanced at the rearview mirror. This guy is either crazy or stupid, one of Jax's men said. It could also be self-confidence, Jax said calmly. If it's a handgun at close range, it's possible to dodge it, but it's a sniper rifle at such a long distance. No one can dodge it after being aimed, the subordinate said disdainfully. Obviously, he didn't agree with Jax's words. Most handgun bullets were round, and their ballistic speed couldn't even reach the speed of sound. Therefore, at close range, a person with sharp reflexes and a certain level of strength would have a chance to avoid it. However, the ballistic speed of most sniper rifles could reach 2,000 meters per second, which was about 6 or 7 times the speed of sound. If an assassin aimed at him with a sniper rifle and failed to dodge before firing, the probability of being hit was more than 80%. As for the 20% that didn't hit their target, it wasn't because they were dodged, but because they were off target. That guy's senses are very sharp, Jax said. I just pretended to look at him casually, and his footsteps changed. I've been in this business for 3 years, but I've never seen anyone who can really see behind their backs. Jax's subordinate was a little arrogant. Just because you haven't doesn't mean there's no such thing. Even I don't have absolute confidence in winning against him, Jax said, somewhat relieved. Luckily, I didn't accept this mission. We should keep some distance from this guy. His conflict with Joseph has nothing to do with us. Knock knock. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the car window. Jax looked up and saw Chen Zhao standing outside the car. Jax's subordinate immediately pulled out his gun and pointed it at Chen Zhao. I heard your conversation just now. You're talking about me, right? The subordinate looked at Jax. Boss, what do we do? Jax's expression was unsettled. Had Chen Zhao heard their conversation? This meant that Chen Zhao had been standing outside the car for a while, but the two of them hadn't noticed at all. This kind of strength that silently appeared in the vicinity was too terrifying. If Chen Zhao had attacked just now, the two of them might not even know how they died. Mocha, put the gun down, Jax said. Jax rolled down the window, and Chen Zhao put his hands on the door. Did the attack just now have anything to do with you? No, it has nothing to do with us, Jax answered. Sir, we're just here to watch. Watch. Why should I believe you? Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes at Jax and Mocha. Who do you think you are? Mocha yelled. Our boss said it has nothing to do with us, so it has nothing to do with us. Jax waved his hand, signaling for Mocha to shut up. Sir, this really has nothing to do with us. Watching a show isn't fun. Since we're here, shouldn't we pay for the ticket? What do you want? Jax asked. Who attacked me? What's their relationship with you? How do you know? The person who attacked you was our employer, but we rejected him, so he found someone else. What's his name? Joseph. He's called Hyena in the industry. Why did you reject him? I don't think we're friends. Because you're rich, just like our previous employer. You're richer than him. We usually don't attack super rich people because it's too risky. Plus, you were able to defeat 6 armed men unscathed a few days ago. This means that you're not to be messed with. When the risk is disproportionate to the reward, I choose to reject you. You know about the bank robbery a few days ago? What's your relationship with that? The people you beat up were hired by me. So we're still enemies. No. At least I don't plan on being enemies with you. Please stop here. We don't have any conflict of interest. Okay, one last question. Where can I find your previous employer, Mr. Hyena Joseph? Beverly Hills. He has 2 mansions there, but I'm not sure. Chapter 1864. Jax's attitude had always been one of compromise. This made Emoka very unhappy. He felt that Jax was too cowardly. A man should be tougher. There was no need for them to be so timid, and even expose their employer's information. Anything else? I want more information. He might harm your family. Chen Zhao frowned at Jax's words. You really didn't participate? No, if we had participated, we wouldn't have appeared before you. Chen Zhao turned to leave. Just then Mocha pointed her gun at him. This was a great opportunity. Jax was shocked. Originally, he was able to stay out of this matter. But Emoka had raised her gun recklessly. And before Jax could react, it was too late. He fired at Chen Zhao's back. Chen Zhao tilted his head to avoid the bullet. Everything was so natural. Chen Zhao turned around and walked toward Monica and Jax. Monica and Jax panicked. Misunderstanding, it's a misunderstanding. Jax tried to calm Chen Zhao down. But Emoka made the wrong decision again. He fired directly at Chen Zhao. However, even though it was only a few meters away, it couldn't hit Chen Zhao at all. In the blink of an eye, Chen Zhao was before Emoka. Emoka turned pale with fright. He finally believed what Jax had said before. Some people's eyes were grown on their backs. Wait, sir. Pung. Chen Zhao pressed Monica's head down and smashed it against the window. Jax's hand went to the weapon at his hip. Chen Zhao pulled Monica out and pushed her toward Jax. Before Jax could take out his weapon, Mocha pounced on him and threw him to the ground. Chen Zhao stepped on Monica's back, making it impossible for Jax to get up. Sir, Emoka is just young and impetuous. Ah. Chen Zhao increased his strength and Mocha screamed again. Young people are full of vigor. He shot me with a gun. Is this called being full of vigor? I can help you make an appointment with Joseph, Jax said. Only then did Chen Zhao let go. Jax was annoyed by Monica's disobedience. He could have stayed out of it. Right now he could only intervene. He didn't want to be enemies with Chen Zhao. Likewise, he didn't like to be Joseph's enemy. He knew how terrifying Joseph was. That was the most despicable and vicious person he had ever known. There was no other. Of course, he also had his own armed forces. Other tycoons relied on their own influence to prevent others from coveting their wealth. However, Joseph had no influence, so he could only rely on his own equipment. Half of his money was used to arm his personal forces. He was like a warlord among the rich. In addition, he was involved in some of the businesses: drugs, firearms, people, and even organs. Therefore, he gathered a group of vicious criminals under his command. There were dozens of armed men living in his house all year round. Even his butler, servants, and chefs were wanted criminals. But now he had to make a choice. They were either on Chen Zhao's side or Joseph's. Of course, if he stood on Joseph's side, he would have to face Chen Zhao right now. Emoka's rash actions just now had already caused them to lose the qualifications to be spectators. Jax, I'm not in Beverly Hills right now. I'm at my villa in the suburbs. A villa in the suburbs? How come I didn't know you had property in the suburbs? Ha! I just got it. The original owner is a good person. He only took $1 from me, haha. Give me the address, Jax said. I have something to talk to you. Okay, I'll send you the address now. After hanging up, one of Joseph's subordinates said, Boss, Jax has been in contact with that person. Got it, Joseph said disapprovingly. Let our people prepare to welcome our guests. On the wall of the room, a man was hanging on the wall. In front of Joseph, there was a naked woman. However, this woman's arms and legs were broken, and she was lying on the table. She no longer had any reaction to Joseph's actions. Just at this time, Joseph suddenly let out a high-pitched voice, and his body trembled. Damn bitch, no reaction at all. Joseph kicked the woman, and she fell to the ground. Bring a Bao and Gates here. One of his subordinates brought 2 hounds that were barking and baring their fangs to Joseph. My darling, she's your dinner. Joseph squatted down and touched the two dogs, then untied their collars. Ah, ah. The woman who had no reaction suddenly screamed and struggled. But facing the two ferocious dogs, the woman with her limbs broken couldn't fight back at all. The two dogs' mouths were full of blood and flesh, and they tore at the poor woman crazily. The man hanging on the wall struggled with all his might. It clearly wasn't the first time the two dogs had bitten someone. They knew how to make the victim suffer even more. They didn't bite the woman's throat. The woman kept screaming, but she couldn't die. She was already a bloody mess. Joseph slapped his head and said with a face full of regret, "Oh no, I shouldn't have let them eat here. I really like this carpet. Do you know how to clean this kind of knitted wool carpet?" "Forget it, let's change the carpet." Joseph sighed. This carpet should be an Arab merchant's carpet. Just then, one of his subordinates came to Joseph. "Boss Jax is here." "Oh, how many?" "One car, 3 people. Other than Jax and his subordinate, Mocha. There's one more person who's our target." "3 people? There aren't any other cars behind them?" "No." "Huh. Let them in," Joseph said proudly. I didn't think that Jax would actually bring them to me, even though he said no. Soon Jax, Mocha, and Chen Zhao were surrounded by Joseph's subordinates. A few people came over to search him. His phone was also taken away. "Please keep my phone safe for me." Chen Zhao smiled at the person. The person looked at Chen Zhao with a cold smile. Jax and Mocha looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. They'd thought that Chen Zhao would call someone, but Chen Zhao had come alone. To them, this was no different from walking into a trap. They really didn't understand Chen Zhao's intentions. Did he think that he could solve all the problems by himself? The person who'd taken Chen Zhao's phone pushed him. "Let's go. My boss is waiting for you. Don't let him wait too long. He doesn't have a good temper." Chapter 1865. Chen Zhao walked into the living room and saw a man hanging on the wall. There was also a woman who had been bitten into a bloody mess. Frowning, Chen Zhao walked up and kicked the two dogs away. He squatted down to check the woman. She was still breathing. She wasn't completely dead. Chen Zhao fed the woman a bottle of medicine. Joseph looked at Chen Zhao quietly, a faint smile on his face. "Sir, this isn't the attitude a guest should have." Chen Zhao stood up again and looked at Joseph. "You want to kill me? Ha, don't make it sound so bad. I just want to borrow some money from you," Joseph said disapprovingly. "If I really wanted to kill you, you would already be lying on the ground." With that, Joseph waved at his subordinate. The subordinate who'd taken Chen Zhao's phone took out a contract. "Come, sign this document." Chen Zhao sat on the sofa and crossed his legs. He picked up the document and glanced at it. It was an IOU. It meant that Chen Zhao had borrowed $2 billion from Joseph. He was going to use all of his properties as collateral. "How is it? Are you satisfied with the contract?" "It's not about whether I'm satisfied or not. It's about whether you have the ability to make me sign it." Chen Zhao smiled at Joseph. "I heard you have a beautiful wife and 2 daughters, right?" Joseph pointed at the man hanging on the wall. "He rejected my request before too. This is his wife." Chen Zhao looked at Joseph, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. "I said that I need you to prove whether you have the ability to force me to sign this contract." Just then, the person who'd taken Chen Zhao's phone took out a gun and pointed it at the back of Chen Zhao's head. But the next moment, Chen Zhao turned around without any warning. Crack! The man's arm was broken. "Ah." Chen Zhao took back his phone unhurriedly. "Good thing my phone isn't broken." Someone. Joseph's bloated body hid behind the sofa with unimaginable agility. Numerous noises could be heard from outside. Chen Zhao looked at the lights in the room, and then at the man hanging on the wall. He walked over and tore off the seal in the man's mouth. "Your villa should have a butler system, right? Kill him. Kill him for me." The man roared. "Give the butler an order to cut off the power to the entire villa." Cut off the power. The entire villa district's power supply was instantly shut down. Everything was plunged into darkness. Even the starlight in the night had disappeared. Then a scream came from outside the door. Da-da-da, boom boom. Everyone felt as if they had fallen into a battlefield. Gunshots and explosions filled his ears. Of course, There were also the inevitable screams. At this moment, Jax and Mocha both found a place to hide. They had no idea what was going on. It was unbelievably dark here. There was no light except the flash of the gun and the explosion. Not even the fire was lit. This kind of dark environment was really unsettling. Finally, the gunfire stopped. The entire villa district was silent, as if it was a silent hell. Everyone held their breath. How's the situation? Who lost? Who won? Just then, Chen Zhao's voice sounded in the darkness. You can turn the lights back on. Connect the power. When the lights came on, everyone felt that their eyes weren't used to it. A few seconds later, they opened their eyes again. But all they saw was a sea of blood. The living room was filled with corpses. All the corpses were piled up in the living room. More than 100 corpses were piled up into a small mountain. Blood had covered the entire living room. The scene sent chills down one's spine. This was a true hell of flesh and blood. Jax and Mocha were both elites among mercenaries. But now they were truly afraid. What kind of monster was this? Chen Zhao stood beside the pile of corpses. His body was covered in blood, and his hands were in his pockets. This guy was an even more terrifying demon than Joseph. Joseph's evil couldn't compare to this man at all. Mocha felt her scalp go numb. How did she have the courage to shoot him? How could she do something so stupid? Chen Zhao walked over and pulled the man down, loosening the rope around his wrist. The man immediately wanted to pounce on Joseph. But Chen Zhao stopped him. With a meaningful smile, Chen Zhao said, "There's still a long time tonight. Don't you want to have some fun?" Joseph's face was pale, and his limbs were trembling. Chen Zhao walked over to the woman and put her on the sofa. "Your wife isn't dead yet," Chen Zhao said. "Go get a basin of water. If she's lucky, she might survive." The man knelt before his wife and started crying loudly. "Maev, I'm sorry. It's my incompetence that hurt you." The woman called Maev's eyes were unfocused. Her body and mind were both broken. Chen Zhao turned his head and glanced at Jax. "Mr. Jax, when I'm treating this lady, I hope some people can keep quiet and not disturb me." Jax took a deep breath. "Happy to help, Mr. Chun." "Lady, it might be very painful, crack." Chen Zhao straightened Maev's arm. Maev arched her body, but now she didn't make a sound. Chen Zhao sensed that Maev's aura had weakened. He sent a bit of celestial power to protect her heart. Terrified, Joseph gradually calmed down and secretly took out a gun from his back. Bang! "Ah!" Jax blew at the smoke from the muzzle. "Sorry to disturb you," Jax said. "Mocha, go get some tape and seal Mr. Joseph." Chen Zhao didn't get distracted. He continued treating Maev. Jax was very rational. He didn't have Mocha's impulsiveness, especially after the massacre. "Sir, Maev, does she still have hope?" "The environment here is simple. I can keep her alive for now, but her injuries need to be changed. I'll call the hospital now." "No, the hospital can't save her," Chen Zhao said. Then what?" Chen Zhao lowered his voice. "A secret place, but you can't reveal it. You and your wife can go there temporarily, but I don't want you to tell anyone about it. Do you understand?" I understand. I'll agree to any of your requests. You can take my assets too." "No need. I'm not interested in your assets." Chapter 1866. "Darling, I might not be able to go back tonight." Chen Zhao called Fei Lai first. "A bug is planning to use you and the child to threaten me. I'm killing it now." "Okay, wash up when you come back. I don't want you to bring the bug's smell home." "I'm busy. I'll hang up now." Chen Zhao hung up. Everyone was thinking about Chen Zhao's wife. Chen Zhao called Klaus again. "Klaus, I'll send you the address. Drive the helicopter over and need a stretcher. Someone's heavily injured and needs to be taken to HQ. Also, have Jalik prepare a container." "Got it, President." Chen Zhao put away the phone and stood up again. "Now we can deal with our main guest today." Chen Zhao looked at Joseph. "Don't be rash. Do you know how powerful I am? Do you think I can't do anything to you just because you killed a few of my people?" Chen Zhao ignored Joseph's threat. He turned to the man beside him. "What do you think about steaming?" "No, that's too easy on him." "Then skin him." "I still can't vent my anger." "How about we bring him back alive? I have many options for you to choose from." There's bound to be one that suits you. Of course, I also want him to die in pain. After all, no one has ever dared to use my family to threaten me. The man thought for a moment and finally nodded heavily. He controlled the beast in his heart. He was afraid that he would suddenly lose control and kill this demon. A while later, the helicopter arrived. Klaus arrived with the lightning squad. When Klaus entered, he immediately covered his nose. President. Yes, leave 2 people here to deal with this. 2 more people come and carry this woman to the helicopter. These 2 look like mercenaries. Klaus looked at Jax and Monica. The 2 immediately exploded. Klaus's gaze made them very uncomfortable. It was a gaze even more explicit than Chen Zhao's. No need, Chen Zhao said. Let them stay and deal with the bodies, then let them go. Chen Zhao and the man sat in the helicopter. Joseph was used as a footrest and laid flat in front of the seat in the helicopter. What's your name? Jiggs. Jiggs stared at Joseph on the ground. His hands were trembling. However, he controlled his emotions very well. Just like the most delicious main dish, it must be served last. The helicopter slowly landed at the headquarters. Carry your wife, Chen Zhao said. But he. Jiggs looked at Joseph on the ground. Don't worry, he's yours. Here, you have a lot of time to satisfy your hatred for him. Only then did Jiggs pick up Maev. Jalag and Wes came out to help. Jiggs carried Maev to a room. Put her in that container. Chen Zhao pointed at a container in the center of the room. Jalag, get the oxygen pump. Chen Zhao instructed everyone. After putting on Maev's oxygen mask, the container was filled with water. At the same time, he poured the perfect demonic crystal mixture into a container and poured 3 bottles into it. Then, he started pouring his immortal power into the container. Jiggs looked worried. Mr. Chen, can Maev survive? Sure. Chen Zhao and Jalag started adjusting the heart rate monitor. There were basically all kinds of equipment in the association. Maev was completely soaked in the liquid. After some work, they finally finished installing all kinds of equipment. Heart rate monitor, alarm, body temperature monitor, water temperature monitor. Jalag was in charge of the other aspects. Chen Zhao couldn't help much. It's done, Jalag said. Jiggs, let's go. It's time for revenge. Jiggs took a deep breath and walked out of the headquarters. Right now, Joseph was yelling in the empty space. He kept threatening everyone here with vicious words. However, his voice woke up the people who were resting. Many poked their heads out and looked at Joseph curiously. President, what's wrong with this guy? Helis walked out with a dark expression. A bug, Chen Zhao said calmly. Almost everyone came to watch. The evil spirit group came too. They were curious who dared to say such things here. Jiggs was still angry, but he was worried. He asked in a low voice. Mr. Chen, so many people are watching. Will your decision be okay? Ha! These guys like to watch more than me. I can do whatever I want. Of course. I want sulfuric acid, Jiggs said tentatively. Hey, you have potential. You want to soak him in sulfuric acid? No, I'm going to pour it into his stomach. Jiggs, don't you dare. Joseph roared. I'll feed your whole family to the dogs. Sulfuric acid isn't fun. He'll die too quickly. I have something fun, Helis said. Jiggs shuddered. This young girl's words were terrifying. What is it? Chen Zhao asked curiously. Let me see. Helis returned to her lab. A few minutes later, she took out a bottle of black liquid. Jiggs took the bottle and looked at the black liquid inside. The black liquid seemed to be alive. It kept climbing up. What is this? Jiggs felt his hair stand on end. He instinctively felt that the black liquid in the bottle was something very dangerous. This is called the spirit of death. You can only get this much from 100 rotting corpses. Jiggs almost dropped the bottle on the ground. 100 rotting corpses? This was extracted from rotting corpses? Hold it tight, Helis reminded. If you drop it, it'll contaminate the place. It'll be very troublesome to deal with. What will happen if he drinks it? Let him try. You'll know soon enough. Chen Zhao went up and pinched Joseph's mouth. Come here and pour this down. When Jiggs opened the bottle, a pungent rotten stench rushed out. Jiggs immediately aimed the bottle at Joseph's mouth. Ugh! Joseph struggled with all his might. Jiggs saw that the black liquid in the bottle didn't flow into Joseph's mouth. Instead, it crawled into his mouth. Chen Zhao closed Jigs's mouth and pushed it away. Wah! Joseph fell to the ground and howled. He kept grabbing at his throat. Then he started retching again. Apart from saliva, nothing came out. Chapter 1867. Joseph scratched his throat, but he couldn't spit anything out. At the moment, he was in extreme pain. He kept rolling on the ground. Joseph was in extreme pain. His clothes were torn too. At this moment, something seemed to be drilling under his skin. Jigs took a few steps back in fear. He stared at Joseph in shock. It was a twisted face. The strange face wriggled under Joseph's skin. It wasn't just one. A second face appeared too. Jigs had never seen such a strange scene before. It made him forget his hatred. He kept staring at Joseph. Save me! Save me! Joseph stood up with difficulty. He staggered toward Jigs. At this time, even his head was deformed. On the left side of his head, another face appeared. His head doubled in size too. The other face had a strange expression. Then his body expanded too. More than 10 faces appeared on his body, covering his front, back, left and right in layers. Then his limbs were covered by the twisted faces too. Jigs retreated in fear, his face pale. Roar! I'm going to kill you. Kill all of you. Jigs howled. He looked even scarier. But at the same time, he suffered even greater pain. Disbelief filled Jigs' face. What's wrong with him? I don't know. It looks like he's accepted the spirit of death. Disgusting. He can even fuse with such a filthy substance. His soul must be filthy too. Harris took a few steps back in disgust. Klaus took out a machine gun and handed it to Jigs. You can shoot him as hard as you can to vent the hatred in your heart. Jigs froze. He looked at the twisted Joseph, still hesitating. Just then Joseph pounced at Jigs. Jigs pulled the trigger instinctively. Bang, bang, bang. Joseph took a few steps back. Jigs lost his balance and fell to the ground. Joseph charged at Jigs again. Jigs covered his head in fear. But the next moment he heard a dull thud. He lowered his arm and saw Chen Zhao standing before him. Joseph, on the other hand, was sent flying more than 10 meters away. He can't hurt you here, Chen Zhao said. Klaus, give him a stronger weapon. Wait. I'll go get the Gatling from the warehouse. Not long after, Klaus brought out a full set of Gatling guns. Of course, Jigs couldn't just shoot with the Gatling gun. We still need cows to set up the shelves. Alright, you can start firing now. Jigs was still in a daze when he was dragged to the Gatling rack. This was his first time playing with this thing. Joseph roared and became even crazier. Kill, kill, kill. Kill all of you. Everyone stepped aside. Jigs took a deep breath and pulled the trigger. Da-da-da-da-da. The sound of the Gatling gun firing was completely different from that of a normal machine gun. Shell casings poured down like rain. And the bullets were also shot out crazily. Joseph didn't even manage to run a few steps before his body was shot into pieces. Jigs continued to vent the hatred in his heart. The hatred in his heart was constantly released with the firing of the Gatling gun. Jigs didn't stop until he finished shooting. By now, Joseph had already become a pile of rotten meat. But there was still something wriggling in the pile. He's not dead. Jigs's face was filled with shock. This thing is really resistant to physical attacks. At this moment, Joseph stood up again. What a special feeling. This feeling of being reborn is really intoxicating. It'll be even better if I use this power to kill you all. Joseph's body wasn't so big anymore. Instead, it shrunk a lot. But it seemed to have become even more terrifying. His arms turned into blades. He was intoxicated by his new power. Jigs's face was pale. Did I go overboard? Jigs looked at Chen Zhao and the others. He realized that they weren't worried at all. Instead, they looked at Joseph's new form with interest. Suddenly, Jigs saw a white figure descend from the sky and land behind Joseph. What is that? Joseph also felt a chill on his back. He suddenly turned around, and the blade on his arm slashed behind him. The blade passed by Pamela's body, and she was cut in half. But Joseph's arm turned into ice, and Pamela's body was back to normal. Little guy, who did you say you wanted to kill? When Joseph heard Pamela's voice that was as cold as winter, he retreated in fear, and looked at Pamela warily. Pamela, he's our toy. You don't have to do anything. Yes, President. Pamela floated out of the circle. Jiggs turned his stiff neck and looked at Qin Zhao. That is. As you can see, the people gathered here aren't normal people. Or not human, Qin Zhao said calmly. For example, Lady Pamela. She's a banshee. There are hundreds of evil spirits beside you. They're Lady Pamela's evil spirit army, Harold said. But you can't see them. Jiggs gasped. Coldness invaded his entire body. Right now, Joseph was like a trapped beast, terrified and helpless. He wanted to explode, but everyone here made him powerless. In Qin Zhao's group, he was a pitiful bug. Only then did Jiggs realize the true secret here. Why would Qin Zhao say that before bringing him here? Okay, push the meat grinder over, Qin Zhao said. Rumble, the meat grinder made a loud noise. The ear-piercing sound made Joseph even more uneasy. He turned to run, but a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Joseph was blasted away. Did I allow you to leave? Qin Zhao looked at Joseph. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Joseph screamed. But his pleas couldn't make anyone pity him. Qin Zhao went up and grabbed Joseph's neck. Joseph reached out and stabbed at Qin Zhao's chest. But the blade on his arm couldn't do any damage to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao broke Joseph's arms with his other hand. You should be more obedient. Qin Zhao had someone bring a bag and put Joseph inside, but he left his head outside. Then Qin Zhao casually tossed the bag and Joseph into the meat grinder. Ah! Tragic cries spread through the entire headquarters. Chapter 1868. The scream made Jiggs' hair stand on end. Blood sprayed out from the end. But the flesh started wriggling again. Joseph stood up once more. Jiggs was in disbelief. He still couldn't kill him? Did he have an immortal body? Even Joseph couldn't believe it. He'd gone through the meat grinder and still couldn't kill himself. Ha 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 ha. Joseph laughed wildly. I have an immortal body. I can't die. It's your turn now. President, this guy is kind of dumb but cute, Jalanash said teasingly as she looked down at Joseph from the window. There was no such thing as an immortal body in this world. True people in the supernatural world all knew this. There was no true immortal body in this world. If he couldn't be killed yet, it was only because he hadn't found a way to kill him yet. Joseph was far from being unkillable. Hallease knew 100 ways to kill him. Moreover, the spirit of death wasn't some heaven-defying substance. Only a noob like Joseph would think that he'd obtained incredible power. President, do you need my help? Dongya Tianqi held the katana in his hand. He flicked his thumb, revealing a line of the blade. Even though it wasn't completely unsheathed, the white-faced ghost still emitted a terrifying demonic aura. No need. He can't take one hit from you. The white-faced ghost's slash wasn't a physical attack. No matter what it slashed at, it only needed one slash, and one slash was enough to kill. Of course, there were only two types of enemies. One was those he couldn't beat. For example, he couldn't fight against someone like Qin Zhao. The other was those who were weaker than him. He could kill them with one hit. Immortality was just a joke in front of him. He could seal off vitality with one hit, even if the target wasn't alive. Qin Zhao looked at Jiggs and asked, do you want to kill him with your own hands? Can he be killed? How? Qin Zhao took out a bottle and handed it to Jiggs. Jiggs realized that the bottle was filled with red liquid this time. Judging from its viscous state, it looked like some kind of blood. What's this? Just pour this on him, and you'll be able to kill him instantly. Jiggs gathered his courage and walked toward Joseph. Joseph still wanted to intimidate Jiggs. But the next moment, Pamela blew a breath of cold air at Joseph from a dozen meters away. The lower half of Joseph's body was frozen solid. Get lost. Don't come near me, Joseph roared. The bottle in Jiggs's hand made him very uncomfortable. Jiggs opened the bottle cap, and a gust of hot air rushed out. What exactly is this thing? Why does it make me feel so hot? Jiggs splashed the red liquid on Joseph's body. Ah! Joseph screamed again. She wondered how many times he had screamed tonight. But it was different from before. Before he only felt pain. But this time he felt death. Joseph's flesh began to burn. Or even boiling. It was a more painful process than being thrown into a meat grinder. Soon, Joseph's entire body was set ablaze. Even the ice was melted. Joseph howled in pain and struggled. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't extinguish the flames on his body. Jiggs hurriedly took a few steps back to avoid being affected by the flames on Joseph's body. What kind of liquid was that? It could actually burn. He didn't know that the bottle just now contained the blood of a fire dragon. The blood of a fire dragon contained a large amount of fire element. It also had a powerful exorcism effect. Normal evil spirits wouldn't dare to touch it. Just a little bit, and their souls would be ignited. Joseph wasn't even strong. Many twisted monsters had his regenerative abilities. It wasn't a unique ability, and Joseph thought he was invincible. In reality, if he was hit a few times, he would lose his consciousness and become a twisted monster. Many people in the society had seen this stuff and were already used to it, especially since Hallies would come up with one every few days. The things that Joseph and Hallies had created were not the most powerful. Finally, there was no more sound from Joseph. His body was turning into ashes. Jiggs let out a long sigh. He was a little disappointed. Joseph was dead. He suddenly regretted killing Joseph so quickly, but he was still a normal person. While Joseph was still alive and kicking, he was still in a state of panic. He was afraid that Joseph would lose control accidentally. But after Joseph died, he felt that he'd let Joseph off too easily. At this moment, another bolt of lightning suddenly descended, directly bombarding the still burning ashes. Chen Zhao's last strike had completely turned Joseph's bones into ashes. Okay, this ends here. Jiggs, you can stay here until your wife recovers, Chen Zhao said. Remember what I told you. I won't tell the outside world about this place. Maeve won't either. Chen Zhao nodded. Take him to a room. Jax and Mo-Ka walked out of the mansion. They'd been dealing with the corpses for most of the night. Suddenly, Jax lifted his leg and kicked Mo-Ka's butt. Mo-Ka was kicked to the ground. Boss, you almost killed us. Jax didn't feel good. They'd been enjoying the show. But Mo-Ka's reckless behavior not only dragged them into the situation, they'd also offended Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao didn't kill them both. It was already God's blessing. Jax was furious, but he didn't dare to take revenge. He could only vent it on Mo-Ka. Plus, it was Mo-Ka's fault in the first place. Mo-Ka rubbed his butt and stood up. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. He followed Jax silently. Tell our people to leave L.A. immediately, Jax said. We can't stay here anymore. Boss, will that person kill us? Mo-Ka asked in fear. Now you're scared? Why didn't you look scared when you attacked? Mo-Ka didn't dare to talk back. How could he not be scared? In 20 minutes, he'd killed more than 100 people. He'd never killed so many people in his life. He'd never seen such a terrifying person or enemy. The mercenaries and killers that disappeared in L.A. in the past 2 years were probably done by that person, Jax said. He probably thinks that L.A. is his territory. If we stay here, we'll only give him an excuse to attack us. Chapter 1869. England, Edinburgh. This was the capital of Scotland, and the most developed city in England apart from London. It had a strong industrial base and high-tech industries. Of course, it was also a very famous cultural city. Ruan Faxben led the way, followed by Exanli Kalon Moore and Lisa. They were standing in front of a castle. Edinburgh was located at the mouth of the sea on the east coast of Scotland. So many castles here were built on cliffs. The castle in front of them, called Death Valley, was built on the cliffs of the coastline. Death Valley Castle was not inferior to Edinburgh Castle at all. They didn't know why this castle had such an ominous name. They came to Death Valley Castle today to visit the owner of the castle. However, when everyone entered the Death Valley Castle, an eerie chill assaulted them. It's so uncomfortable here, Kalon said, touching his goosebumps. There were some modern appliances in the castle, but the overall style still retained the ancient style. Of course, some damaged areas had been repaired. Due to the original design flaw, the inside of the castle was not transparent. It gave people a particularly eerie feeling. Death Valley used to be the territory of the leader of the rebel army, Earl Nagran Vagris. However, the rebel army was eventually defeated by the government. It's said that Earl Nagran Vagris was hanged in the deepest part of this castle, Ruan Faxben said. Ruan Faxben said, The castle and the noble title are now inherited by the descendants of Earl Nagran Vagris. Just then a clear sound of footsteps could be heard. It's not the rebel army, it's the Revolutionary Army. A woman walked over. The woman had long blonde hair, was tall, and wore high heels. She looked smart and capable. The woman looked at everyone with a condescending gaze. I'm Nala L., Mr. Vagris's assistant. Are you the one who wants to see Mr. Vagris? Beautiful lady, I'm Ruan Faxben. Hello. Ruan Faxben reached out his hand, but Nala L. didn't. This made Ruan Faxben feel rather awkward. His hand froze in the air, not knowing whether to withdraw or release it. Wait here. I'll go inform Mr. Vagris. Although you have an appointment, Mr. Vagris's temper has always been erratic. He might not see you. Knock knock knock. Nala Iyer stepped on the heaven-hating heights and left. Her footsteps were as arrogant as she was. What an unlikable woman, Ruan Faxburn murmured. Faxi, it's mainly because you're not likable. You're already in your 40s, and you're the kind of person who doesn't care about your appearance. Why do you have to act like a gentleman? Risa teased. Shut up. I'm not even 50 yet, Ruan Faxi yelled in annoyance. If the president is here, he can definitely change that woman's attitude. Bullshit, the president is so young. How could he have the temperament of a mature man like me? But the guild leader is more charming than you. That's right, uncle is a perfect man. Exionly said, handsome, young, gentle, rich, and powerful. Ruan Faxben rolled his eyes. Little girl, you haven't seen your uncle's cruel side, right? If he gets angry, he'll transform into a demon. Even if he's angry, there must be a reason. Exionly was Chun Zhao's diehard fan. Also, I can feel a strong sense of jealousy from your tone. You're jealous of him. Ruan Faxben turned his head away, asking for a snub. Facing a brainless fan, no words could wake her up. Just then Nala Iyer returned. Everyone immediately quietened down. Mr. Vagris agreed to see you, but you better be mentally prepared. Mentally prepared for what? Nala Iyer hesitated. Mr. Vagris is a bit weird. He always thinks of himself as a vampire. It's fine, Ruan Faxben said, smiling. We'll cooperate with his performance. All right, please follow me. After passing through the long corridors, they finally reached the depths of the castle. A man in classic British aristocratic attire leaned against the window, looking at the sea outside. Count Vagris. Ruan Faxben put one hand on his chest respectfully and bowed with his head lowered. Shouldn't vampires hide in dark rooms? Aren't you afraid of the sun shining on you? Risa tilted her head and looked at the man before her. It's the sun now. It's in the other direction of the castle. It can't shine here, Nagran Vagris said. Nagran Vagris said. And vampires hate the sun, not fear it. Ruan Faxben knew that one of Chun Zhao's subordinates was a vampire, but he hadn't heard that Chun Zhao was afraid of the sun. Nagran Vagris waved at Nala Iyer, gesturing for her to leave. After Nala Iyer left, Nagran Vagris ran his hands through his hair. Everyone sized up the vampire in front of them. You are the dead Duke Nagran Varglis? Ruan Faxburn asked in a probing manner. Are you surprised? You must have encountered many supernatural creatures, right? Quite a few, but it's my first time with vampires, Ruan Faxben said. Ruan said, but I heard that even vampires don't live more than 200 years, right? It's a matter of power, Nagran said. When I break through some shackles, I have a lifespan that surpasses my peers. Tell me, what do you want from me? Don't tell me that you want to turn into a vampire. Only ordinary people can do it, and the process is very complicated. No. We want to know the contents of the Book of Prometheus, Exionly said eagerly. Exionly said impatiently, you were the one who donated the Book of Prometheus to the British Museum, right? Did you leave a copy? Nagran Varglis looked at Exionly in surprise. Your blood looks delicious. Ruan Faxben looked at Nagran Vagris. Please don't do anything to these children, especially this girl. Trust me, her parents are very fierce. I'm fierce too, Nagran Vagris said with a smile. Her parents only need to call 23rd generation Blood Mary to come and support her. Count Nagran Vagris, are you sure you can handle it? 23rd generation Blood Mary. Nagran Vagris' face twitched. as if recalling an unpleasant memory. Forget it. I can't afford to offend her. Chapter 1870. Nagran Varglas came down from the windowsill and turned to look at them. I have the rubbing of the Book of Prometheus, Nagran Varglas said. Since you have such a powerful background, the price you're offering shouldn't be low, right? Price? Do I still have to pay? Exionly asked, confused. How much do you want? My uncle gave me a credit card with a limit of $100,000. Nagran Varglas rolled his eyes. Ruan Faxaban looked at Nagran Varglas. Then what does the Earl want? Her blood, Nagran Varglas said, pointing at Exionly. I'm afraid not. Her uncle will kill me. I just need a little, 1,000 milliliters. It's not much, right? It's okay, just 1,000 milliliters. I agree, Exionly said generously. Normally, 500 milliliters was enough for 2 donations. Exionly didn't think it would be a problem. Where's the rubbing? This girl's blood is only the first condition. There are 2 more. Any other requests? Ruan Faxban frowned. Previously, Exionly had exposed their goal in advance. It caused them to be very passive now. After all, they had a favor to ask. They could only accept Nagran Varglas's request. I want a dragon's tooth, and a pureblood dragon's tooth at that. This, Ruan Faxi's face showed hesitation. But Exionly exposed herself again. That's it. I thought it was something else. We have plenty of dragon teeth. Exionly's tone was very arrogant. Nagran Varglas raised an eyebrow. Plenty of dragon teeth? I'm talking about pureblood dragon teeth. Are you sure you have a lot? Not a lot. Ruan Faxban immediately interrupted Exionly. Exionly was too young. She didn't know how dangerous the world was. But we can still give you 1 dragon tooth, Ruan Faxban said. Do you have other parts of pureblood dragons? Nagran Varglas asked. Yes, but you should also know how precious these things are. 1 dragon tooth is our bottom line. Don't expect us to pay more, Ruan Faxban said forcefully. All right. Nagran Varglas rubbed his chin. The third request is that there is a 2-headed ogre hibernating in the West Mountain Forest. I want you to bring the head of this 2-headed ogre to me. Earl, I'm an alchemist. I don't have much fighting power. My role is to babysit them. Now, you want me to bring these children to kill a 2-headed ogre? Don't you think it's too much? Ruan Faxban looked at Nagran Varglas with righteous indignation. He glared at Nagran Varglas indignantly, as if he had suffered a huge grievance. Actually, killing a twin-headed ogre was not completely unacceptable. But Ruan Faxi didn't want to accept it so easily. Moreover, the twin-headed ogre was not easy to kill. Ordinary ogres only had 1 head. They were just some bloodthirsty, greedy beasts with well-developed limbs and simple brains. However, among the ogres there were rare twin-headed ogres. Not only did they possess high intelligence, but they also cultivated both physics and elemental energy. Not only did they have stronger bodies than ordinary ogres, but they also had powerful elemental magic. Coupled with their cunning nature, their fighting power was more than 10 times that of ordinary ogres. Didn't you say that these children have great influence? If you can't do it, you can ask the elders behind them. I believe they can definitely do it. Nagran Varglas looked at Ruan Faxban, as if it was a matter of course. They came out to train. If they contact their families because of this, then their training will be a complete failure. I will also be severely punished, so I don't think this is a good choice. That's your problem, Nagran Varglas said mercilessly. Earl, we came with sincerity. If you ask for such a sky-high price, then we can't continue the discussion. Seeing Ruan Faxban's unyielding attitude, Nagran Varglas couldn't help but wonder if his request was too much. However, when Nagran Varglas saw Exionly's gaze, he suddenly realized that Ruan Faxi was trying to bargain with him. I don't think this request is too much. Earl, if any of these children are hurt, their elders won't just vent their anger on me, Ruan Faxban threatened. Nagran Varglas was instantly unhappy. Ruan Faxban's words were clearly a threat. Do you think I'll be afraid? Do you know how many of my family members are in Edinburgh? Perhaps I'll be afraid in other places. But in my territory, no one can threaten me, not even the Scarlet Church or 23rd Blood Mary. Earl, Xian Li's elders can affect not only 23rd Blood Mary, but also Taoist Master Zhang Tianyi of the Eastern Dragon Tiger Mountain Celestial Master Sect. I believe Mr. Zhang will be very willing to travel to Edinburgh. Nagran Varglas's expression changed slightly. Of course he knew Zhang Tianyi's name. This name was even more famous than 23rd Blood Mary. Zhang Tianyi was known as the number one in the spiritual world. He was also different from 23rd Blood Mary. It was said that 23rd Blood Mary was about to reach the end of her life. So Nagran Varglas felt that 23rd Blood Mary would not be a threat, as long as he delayed for a while. As for the Scarlet Church, if they really wanted to start an all-out war with him, as long as Edinburgh was the main battlefield, he was not afraid of any force. But Zhang Tianyi was different. He did not even need to come personally. He only needed to wave his hand. Many spiritualists were willing to work for him. The number one in the spiritual world was not just for show. But Nagran Varglas wouldn't give in so easily. His face was still filled with disdain. Say whatever you want. How do I know if you're telling the truth? You might as well say that you can make the Prime Minister trouble me. Earl, since you say so, then forget it. I hope you can still maintain this attitude in the Battle of the Holy Glory. Nagran Varglas raised an eyebrow. This guy knew about the Battle of the Holy Glory. Those who knew about the Battle of the Holy Glory were definitely qualified to participate. And everyone who was qualified could not be underestimated, especially when they could influence the two strongest in the world. Chapter 1871. The Battle of Holy Glory was a feast for those at the top of the spiritual world. It was like the Football World Cup. Even Nagran Varglas couldn't refuse this feast. Nagran Varglas was also a frequent participant in the Battle of Holy Glory. But if the people behind them could influence the two strongest people in the world, then Nagran Varglas would be in big trouble. Especially when the Battle of Holy Glory arrived. If Zhang Tianyi and 23rd Blood Mary met him head-on, he wouldn't even have a place to hide. The spiritual world was a place where strength mattered. It followed the law of the jungle here. The strength of one's strength represented everything. If Zhang Tianyi and 23rd Blood Mary wanted to deal with one person at the same time, no one would dare to make a sound. And if these children were really in danger because of his request, or even died, then it would be a grudge that wouldn't end until one party died. In any era, killing someone else's junior or descendant would be a grudge that wouldn't end until one party died. Don't talk about a fair deal. No one would accept such an excuse. He would be the same, let alone the others. Then leave. Since you can't make a deal, you don't have to stay here. Xian Li looked at Ruan Faxben anxiously. Riisa shouted, I'm going to kill the two-headed ogre. I'm going. Don't stop me. I can definitely kill the two-headed ogre. Riisa, calm down. The two-headed ogre isn't something we can deal with, Moore said, pulling the noisy Riisa aside. I'm not afraid of the two-headed ogre, Riisa shouted, stomping her feet. I don't care, I have to go. Ruan Faxben's face darkened. He looked at Nagran Varglas. Earl, if anything happens to them, you'll be in big trouble. You're blaming me for not keeping an eye on the children? Of course I won't blame you, Earl. But their elders might not be as reasonable as me. Nagran Varglas was even more annoyed. What do you want? We can agree to the first two conditions, but the third one is big trouble for both of us. Give me another dragon tooth, Nagran Varglas said. Actually, it was useless to have more dragon teeth, but Nagran Varglas would not let Xian Li bleed anymore. After all, 1,000 milliliters of blood would have a certain effect on the human body. If there were any more, if something happened to the girl, that was the real problem. Ruan Faxi thought for a while and finally nodded. Okay. But Nagran Varglas felt like he had been tricked. These are 2 dragon teeth. Where's the rubbing? Ruan Faxibin asked. In the British Museum, Nagran Varglas said with a smile. What? Are you messing with me? Of course not. You can have as many copies as you want. The Book of Prometheus was donated by me to the British Museum, and the curator of the British Museum is my friend. So if I want to borrow and copy the book, it's just a matter of asking. Nagran Varglas said disapprovingly. The Book of Prometheus was donated by me to the British Museum. Do you have equipment to draw blood here? Nagran Varglas bared his fangs. Do you think a vampire needs equipment? Trust me, if you dare bite her, you won't live past tonight. Alright, you guys go find the equipment to draw blood. Nagran Varglas did not believe Ruan Faxaben's words. But he did not want to cause trouble. Let's trade tomorrow, Ruan Faxaben said. We'll give you the blood bags and the rubbing of the Book of Prometheus. Do you want these 2 dragon teeth back? No, just take it as a deposit, Ruan Faxaben said. Aren't you afraid I won't pay? If you think the 2 dragon teeth are worth the risk, you can try. Ruan Faxaben left the castle with the 4 children. Faxaben, what did you think of my performance just now? Lisa asked proudly. Not bad, but a bit too much. You're already a teenager, but you acted like a child, Ruan Faxaben said. Ruan Faxburn said, you have such a high IQ. I think you should sign up for an acting class. My performance was so perfect. What's wrong with it? Lisa shouted angrily. Mr. Faxaben, we clearly have a lot of dragon teeth. Why don't we trade directly? And can't we beat a 2-headed ogre? Dragon teeth are worthless to us because they were obtained by your uncle. Your uncle has the ability to slay dragons, but others don't. That's why we need to control the number of dragon teeth on the market. If there are too many dragon teeth on the market, then the price will plummet. We'll still be the ones losing out. Ruan Faxaben explained patiently to Xian Li. Unlike Moore and Lisa, who were both smart and different from Colin's more complete worldview, Xian Li had always lived in her family's residential area. She had some contact with the outside world, but not much. Most of her contact was through television or computers. Therefore, she was still very naive and didn't understand these things at all. As for the 2-headed ogre, it's not easy to deal with, Ruan Faxaben said. Even if we're confident, we shouldn't deal with it ourselves. At least we need Nagran Varglas to offer a higher price. Otherwise, we'll be working for nothing. But we only want the Book of Prometheus. We don't need anything else. The Book of Prometheus is written in ancient Greek. Can you understand it? Or do you think any of us can understand it? Can that vampire count read it? I don't know. But as an old monster who's lived for more than 200 years, he's definitely more knowledgeable than us. He's definitely more likely to understand ancient Greek. Okay. Did I almost ruin things just now? Xian Li asked. Ruan Faxaben took a deep breath. Xian Li had indeed ruined things. If Xian Li hadn't interrupted, Ruan Faxaben was confident that he could get the rubbing at a lower price. But he definitely couldn't answer yes directly. If Xian Li was traumatized because of this, Chen Zhao would kill him. It's okay. This is why the president asked you to come out. You still have many things to learn. Mr. Faxaben, I promise I won't interrupt again, Xian Li said firmly. Chapter 1872. Old Zhang, can I ask you something? I don't have a ticket. I don't want a ticket. Then tell me, do you have an anonymous ticket? Anonymous my ass. The Battle of Holy Glory is such an honorable thing. Every participant wants their name above their head. Why do you want an anonymous ticket? What's in your head? Zhang Tianyi opened his mouth and spat at Chen Zhao, making Chen Zhao bleed. If you don't have one, then don't be so agitated. I'm hanging up. Wait. A few days ago, a mysterious expert appeared in Vietnam and killed that flood dragon. Did you do it? What flood dragon? That's just an eel, okay? Don't you know that scaled primates can turn into dragons? So what? I don't think that eel is that strong. That guy is from the Zhen River. Do you know that after that eel? No, after you killed the flood dragon, the river flooded? Luckily, it's just a tributary of the Mekong River. Why didn't you tell me earlier? If that guy is so important, why didn't anyone stop Blood Mary when she listed it as a red mission? You're too late. That's because I've never thought that anyone could kill it. It has the power of the river. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's a water god. In that tributary, it's almost impossible to kill it. It has endless power. Chen Zhao thought about it. The big eel's recovery seemed to be really unusual. It was clearly weaker than Chen Zhao and Tamamo no Mei. However, its regenerative ability was astonishing. Chen Zhao had smashed its head with a punch, and it could still heal. This was more or less an immortal body, so it was because it had the power of a river. That river should be considered as its domain. If not for the Black Trident, Chen Zhao probably couldn't do anything to it. You took its beast core? What beast core? I don't know. Stop bullshitting. We've met a few times. I've long noticed that you have the aura of lightning water. That eel. No, the flood dragon is also lightning water. You must have noticed its beast core, Zhang Tianyi said with certainty. Give me the water beast core. You're going too far. I risked my life to kill that eel. Yet you're asking for half of the spoils of war right now. I'm helping you clean up, Zhang Tianyi cursed. That beast core is to create a new river god. Otherwise, that tributary will flood so much land. Do you know how many people will lose their homes? Chen Zhao gritted his teeth. He'd thought that he'd gotten rid of a disaster for the people. Give me another $1 million, and donate it to the local victims. I can give it, but I don't have money. I'm accumulating good karma for you. Even if you're not afraid of karma, you should think about your family and children. The debts you owe will affect your family. Chen Zhao thought for a moment. Could Joseph have been punished because of his sins? Okay. I suddenly feel sad when I think of the victims. Is $1 million enough? Should I donate more? Chen Zhao paused. Then he asked, can accumulating good fortune bring good luck to my family too? Zhang Tianyi was speechless towards this bastard who wouldn't release the eagle without seeing the rabbit. I'll have someone from the North American Embassy contact you. You just need to give it to them. Okay. Oh, do you need a secret code? For example, the Heavenly King covers the Earth Tiger, or the pagoda suppresses the river monster. I don't have time to talk to you. I have business to do. Just then, Chen Zhao heard a voice. Thank you for the Manchu Han Imperial Feast. Love you. This disrespectful old thing was watching the live stream of an online streamer again. Old Zhang, I need to put this donation to good use. Give me the receipt. If I find out that the money went to some streamer, I'll go to Dragon Tiger Mountain to ask for it personally. Who do you think I am? I'm doing it with a learning attitude to promote Taoism. You're also doing it with a learning attitude. It's called respecting the content of the show. Since it's learning, of course I have to pay. If you live stream subduing demons, you'll definitely have more than 1 million fans. I want to, but if I dare to do that, I'll be sent to jail tomorrow for spreading futile thoughts. I'm hanging up. Chen Zhao couldn't be bothered to continue arguing with Zhang Tianyi. Not long after he hung up the phone, a car entered the territory of the Mingyue villa. A square-faced man walked up to Chen Zhao. He emitted surging magic power. Hello. You must be the Mr. Chen that my ancestor mentioned. I'm Yanghua. Chen Zhao looked at Yanghua with a, are you fucking kidding me? I'm not joking. Yanghua looked at Chen Zhao seriously. It was as if he had read Chen Zhao's unspoken words. It was definitely not his first time in such a situation. Can you tell me what you've been through? Because of this name, I hid abroad, Yanghua said gloomily. I thought that if I could interact with foreigners, I wouldn't have the troubles in China. Chen Zhao suddenly felt a gaze from the sky. Looking up, he saw a huge eagle circling in the sky. Yours? My ancestor gave it to me. He said that this eagle matches my name. Helplessness was also written all over Yanggua's face. Before I left, my ancestor said that I was still lacking and almost cut off my right arm. He didn't give you another wife. Why do you think he didn't give me one? You're also called Little Dragon Maiden. Dragon, Yanghua said. Take this and this check. Chen Zhao gave Yanghua the water elemental internal alchemy and a $2 million check. Come visit me when you're free. Oh, you're welcome to come too. Chen Zhao really wanted to see if the legendary Little Dragon Maiden was also devastatingly beautiful. Yanghua looked away. He'd already seen through Chen Zhao's dirty thoughts. She's in China. Don't even think about it. I still have things to do, so I won't keep you. Hearing that he wouldn't have a chance to see Little Dragon Maiden, Chen Zhao instantly lost interest. He didn't even want to deal with Yanghua anymore. He directly asked him to leave. Yanghua glanced at the dragon head in the yard. Mr. Chen, you're really daring to put a dragon head in front of your house. You're not Chinese if you're afraid of death. The giant dragon race is famous for seeking revenge for the smallest grievance. I can only say that I respect you. Goodbye. Goodbye. Chen Zhao glanced at the dragon head in the yard. Should I put it away? Forget it. If I put it away now, I'll look cowardly. Anyway, if the giant dragon race really dared to come, He would just have to slay them again. Chapter 1873. Chen Zhao went to HQ. In Maev's treatment room, Jig sat beside him looking haggard. He stared at the sleeping Maev in the container with lifeless eyes. Seeing Chen Zhao come in, Jigs immediately stood up. Mr. Chen. Chen Zhao nodded and walked to the container. Maev's injuries were very serious. She could even be said to be the most seriously injured patient Chen Zhao had ever seen in his career. No one else. Even with normal treatment methods. Even Chen Zhao couldn't do anything about it. When Chen Zhao had brought her back to HQ, he'd basically picked up a corpse. If she'd been sent to the hospital, she probably wouldn't even have made it to the hospital. Mr. Chen, how's Maev? Not really good, but at least she's stabilized, Chen Zhao said. Actually, Maev's biggest problem was still psychological. However, this had nothing to do with Chen Zhao. After Chen Zhao healed her, Jigs would be responsible for her psychological trauma. Chen Zhao started draining the liquid in the container. Then, he took over the container and filled it with new water. Maev had already absorbed all the essence in the container. He had to pour in new perfect demonic crystals. Jigs couldn't help either. He could only worry on the side. Chen Zhao saw that Jigs would be very uneasy if he didn't do anything. Come and reconnect these devices, Chen Zhao said. Jigs immediately came to help after receiving the order. After changing the water, Chen Zhao said to Jigs, "Go rest. I think you're in a bad state." Chen Zhao looked at the container before him and the complicated devices around it. Could these instruments and the container itself be combined, instead of being put together in such a crude way as they were now? Just the messy wires were enough to make Chen Zhao very uncomfortable. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't understand machinery and technology. He needed to ask Jalik. He told Jalik his request and thoughts. As for whether Jalik could satisfy his needs, Chen Zhao wasn't sure. Mr. Chen, how long will Maev need to be healed? At least a month, Chen Zhao said. How much can she heal? Her external injuries will be completely healed, Chen Zhao said. Can I really? The real problem is her psychological trauma, Chen Zhao said. You can only rely on yourself. I can't help. Jigs nodded in understanding. You really should go and rest. Otherwise, it's very likely that she'll cure you but you'll collapse. I will. Although Jigs said so, he had no intention of resting. Chen Zhao didn't force it. No matter what, it was his own business. Chen Zhao walked out and turned left. He found Jalik's warehouse. Jalik's lab was as messy as Ruan Faxbin's. Everything had been thrown away haphazardly. The amazing thing was that they always knew where the thing they were looking for was. But once someone was kind enough to help them clean up, they would go crazy, and they wouldn't be able to find anything. At this moment, Jalik was wearing a pair of sunglasses as he welded. He seemed to be doing some mechanical design again. Chen Zhao's arrival didn't stop Jalik's work. Until Jalik's welding was complete. Only then did Chen Zhao speak. Jalik. Ah, President, when did you arrive? I just arrived. What are you doing? Giselle's new equipment, Jalik said. When do you have time to help me make an instrument? Chen Zhao told him his idea. Can it be done? It's not hard. Actually, I just need to integrate those instruments and install them on the container. Then I'll do some cosmetic changes to avoid some safety issues. What Chen Zhao was worried about were the technical problems. Actually, there weren't any technical problems at all. Chen Zhao's request was simple. It was a combination, not an innovation. But he wasn't in a hurry to use it for now. Chen Zhao wanted to prepare some medical equipment for emergencies. After all, the spiritual world was a high-risk job. Chen Zhao stayed in the headquarters for 2 hours. Everyone was preparing for the next African trip. Chen Zhao would be a hindrance if he stayed. So he left the headquarters early. I wonder how Raymond is doing. Chen Zhao checked the time. There were still 3 hours until Fei Lai got off work. While he still had time, he went to Stephen's forest. When he reached the foot of the mountain, he saw 2 bicycles by the road. Weird. Why are there 2 bicycles here? Confused, Chen Zhao walked up the mountain. When he reached the top, he heard cries for help. Help! Help! Chen Zhao looked in the direction of the sound. 2 kilometers away, there were 2 kids hugging a big tree. They kept shouting and waving their hands, hoping to attract Chen Zhao's attention. But Chen Zhao pretended not to hear or see them. Of course, normal people couldn't see or hear them from such a distance. 3 or 4 crocodiles were sunbathing under the tree. The 2 kids weren't in danger anyway. Chen Zhao wasn't in a hurry to save them. Reinen, it's useless. That man can't hear us. Jess, what do we do? I don't want to die here. Ever since the last time, Jess and Reinen had been hoping to get a picture of the monster. Then, they snuck here and hid in the tree with enough equipment and food. They planned to fight a long battle here. They thought that the monster should be amphibious and wouldn't climb trees. But soon after they climbed up, a group of crocodiles came. The crocodiles didn't notice them. Instead, it was because there was plenty of sunlight here. They were sunbathing under the tree. This lasted for 2 days. The crocodiles didn't leave completely. After one left, another group came. This also caused the 2 of them to be trapped on the tree. This caused the 2 of them to be trapped in the tree for 2 days. They ate, drank, and pooped on the tree. They couldn't sleep at all. They were afraid that they would fall down if they fell asleep. At first, they hoped that Frank would come again. But after 2 days, Frank still didn't come. There was no signal here at all. Their phones were all out of battery in 2 days. This made them sink into despair. Just then the person came. But the tree they were hiding in was a bit off the road. As a result, the person didn't hear their cries at all. They didn't know that Chen Zhao did it on purpose. Chen Zhao didn't know who the 2 kids were. If they didn't have anything to do with Steven, he would call the police after they went down the mountain. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1874. Chen Zhao's small world spread out. It covered more than half of the lake. There were clearly fewer crocodiles here. There were probably less than 1/10 of the entire lake now. However, the fewer they were, the harder it was to clear them out. Chen Zhao looked at the lake. Then he took off his clothes and dove into the water. Reinen and Jess cried out again on the treetops in the distance. There were water monsters and crocodiles in the water. Going into the water was suicide. But the man clearly couldn't hear them. He still dove into the water. Soon Chen Zhao sank into the water. He didn't come up again. It was obvious that the man must have been killed. He was either eaten by a water monster or drowned by a crocodile. Chen Zhao had indeed been bitten by a crocodile. Chen Zhao dove into the water and pinched the crocodile that bit him to death. Just then, Raymond sensed Chen Zhao's arrival and swam over. "Master, let's work harder and kill all these bugs," Raymond complained. "These crocodiles are too disgusting. That asterisk shoal Frank hasn't come for the past 2 days. If I see him again, I'll eat him." "Fine." Chen Zhao opened up the small world completely. Everything inside was within his perception. Then he started hunting the crocodiles. With Raymond and Chen Zhao working together, the hunting speed was even faster. As long as the small world enveloped them, the crocodiles had nowhere to hide. Chen Zhao and Raymond could accurately track the crocodiles' movements. They didn't even let the baby crocodiles go. Chen Zhao also destroyed their eggs. After 30 minutes, they finally cleared all the crocodiles. "Raymond, I'll come pick you up at night." "Okay." It wasn't convenient to move during the day. Reinen and Jess in the distant tree suddenly saw the man who had disappeared from the lake for half an hour float to the surface of the water again. How is that possible? How is he still alive? Did he dive for a long distance and we didn't notice him? Impossible. We can see a large area from here. If he came up from somewhere else, he can't escape our sight. But that's the truth. A normal person can't stay underwater for more than 30 minutes without breathing. But there are water monsters and crocodiles in the water. Didn't they attack his mom? Reinen asked, confused. Maybe it's because his luck is better. Hey, he's coming in our direction. Oh no, look below us. Just then, the 2 crocodiles under the tree climbed into the water. They had obviously discovered their prey. Don't come over. Don't come over. Crocodile, there are crocodiles in the water. Suddenly, the man dived into the water again. Not long after, a patch of red rose from the water. It's over. That man is dead for sure. After killing the crocodile in the water, Chen Zhao used a rock to press the carcass to the bottom of the lake. If it floated up, it would be very disgusting if it was left to rot without any treatment. If they were left at the bottom of the lake, they would be digested by the biological system in the lake. they would truly return to nature. While Jared and Jess were in a mess, Chenjiao had logged back in. When Jess and Reinen saw Chenjiao, their faces were filled with astonishment. How could this guy still be alive? That's impossible, right? Where are the two crocodiles? Just then, the two crocodiles under the tree charged at him. Crocodile, the crocodile is coming towards you. At such a close distance, Chenjiao could no longer pretend not to hear. On land, crocodiles weren't as slow as people thought. In fact, crocodiles had very strong sprinting abilities and speed. On land, they also had very fast short-distance explosive power. One crocodile charged at Chenjiao first. Chenjiao jumped lightly and grabbed the crocodile's tail. Then he threw it over his shoulder and smashed it onto the other crocodile. Both crocodiles were taken care of in one move. The two kids on the tree were dumbfounded. So simple? It ended just like that. Chenjiao looked up at Jared and Jess on the tree. Are you two playing hide and seek? Chenjiao pouted. Fine, I won't disturb you anymore. You guys continue. With that, Chenjiao turned and left. After taking his clothes, he went down the mountain directly. Jared and Jess hurried down the tree. But when they reached the ground, Chenjiao had already left. That man is so strong, Jared whispered. Let's leave quickly. It's too dangerous here. Steven, I just went to your lake. Aren't you being too irresponsible? I gave Raymond to you, but you let him starve. Raymond told me that you haven't given him food for 2 days. Sorry, it's my fault. Frank got into an accident 2 days ago. I forgot about it. Accident? What happened to him? He got into a car accident and broke his leg. He's recovering in the hospital. He can't get out of bed for at least half a month. Oh, will there be any side effects? If he's well, probably not, Steven said helplessly. I'll have Fantas bring food to Raymond now. No need. I just cleaned up all the crocodiles for you. Later, have Fantas bring Raymond to my house. You're done. I confirmed it myself. It's very clean. Chenjiao didn't plan on blaming Steven. After all, there was a reason. Steven didn't do it on purpose. Oh, 2 high school students were trapped at the lake just now. Luckily I came, or they'd be food for the crocodiles. High school students? Frank told me before that he saw a few kids going up the mountain. He even made up a story about monsters. I was going to have him put up a sign at the foot of the mountain, but he got into a car accident and forgot about it. Oh, was Frank's car accident an accident? Probably. It's better to be careful. Some criminals will target the bodyguards first when they target rich people. That's true. What should I do? How about you bring Raymond to your house for a few days? Chenjiao asked. As for traveling, tell Fantas not to leave your side. How about? Don't even think about moving to my house. You're not welcome there. Do you have to be so stingy? Why are you so petty? We are brothers. Fuck you, I don't have a brother as big as you. Also, did you forget that you took tens of millions of dollars worth of wine from my house last time? I left a note. You even gave the note to little Larissa and made her put it in her mouth. That's your fault. You didn't teach little Larissa well. Chapter 1875. Here's 1,000 milliliters of Xian Li's blood. Ruan Faxben threw a blood bag to Nagran Vagris. Nagran Vagris held the blood bag and took a deep breath. Even though it was separated by the material, even though it was through the material, Nagran Vagris seemed to be able to smell the blood inside. He took an intoxicated breath and then put the blood bag away in satisfaction. That's right, it's the girl's blood. Then what about the thing we want? Nagran Vagris took out a rubbing from the safe. But this rubbing was not printed with a printer like everyone imagined. It was printed in a very ancient way, and there were only a few pieces of paper. How did this happen? Ruan Faxben frowned and looked at the coarse paper in his hand. There was still ink on it. Many of the contents were very vague. In this era, even spiritualists wouldn't use such a primitive method of copying. In Ruan Faxben's opinion, Nagran Vagris was deliberately making things difficult for them. The Book of Prometheus is a few big stones. I can't hold a few stones and put them on the printer to print, right? I can only use ink to make a rubbing. Stones. Of course. Don't you know? The original version of the Book of Prometheus is a few heavy stones. But we've been to the British Museum. The exhibits there are not stones at all. That's fake, Nagran Vagris said calmly. The real Book of Prometheus is just a few stones. I have no reason to lie to you. Fine. Ruan Faxben did not want to argue anymore. He looked at Nagran Vagris and said, Count, do you know ancient Greek? It's very expensive for me to translate, and I don't like to be threatened. This time, Nagran Vagris said the ugly part first. After all, he had been threatened a few days ago, so he had to back down. Zhang Tianyi and the 23rd Blood Mary were too famous and illustrious. Even if he could not guarantee that they were related to these two, Nagran Vagris did not want to be enemies with them. But he was unwilling. After all, he was not a charity. He was not related to them, and always used them to threaten him. No matter who the other party was, it was unbearable. So Nagran Vagris made up his mind not to back down. Tell me your conditions, Sir Count. I still have the same request. Help me kill the twin-headed ogre. Just then Ruan took out a small bottle. After opening the bottle, he flipped it over. 2 small balls rolled out from inside. Ruan Faxben sprinkled some magic powder on the ball. In an instant, the 2 balls turned into 2 huge heads. These 2 heads were several times the size of an ordinary person. The bloody head rolled to the ground. Nagran Vagris raised an eyebrow and went forward to check. It really was that hateful twin-headed ogre. They actually killed the twin-headed ogre? Nagran Vagris looked at Ruan Faxben in bewilderment. Did he do it? Or was it the power behind them? Nagran Vagris had been fighting this 2-headed ogre for more than 100 years. Neither side could do anything to the other. But in this case, Nagran Vagris had suffered a huge loss. Because in the past 100 years, he had lost hundreds of subordinates or family members. And almost all of them had become food for the twin-headed ogre. This twin-headed ogre was different from ordinary ogres. He would directly attack anyone he saw. This twin-headed ogre understood the rules of humans and would not attack ordinary people at all. Even if he ran out of food, he would at most attack the cows and sheep in the nearby farms. So even though the government knew of the existence of this twin-headed ogre, they ignored him. They were even happy to see Nagran Vagris and this twin-headed ogre fight each other. Of course, Nagran Vagris knew the sinister intentions of the government. But he had no other choice. This twin-headed ogre was not only powerful, but he also never left the mountains. In the past, he had led teams into the mountains to surround him. Most of them fell into his traps and died. Nagran Vagris's strength was only on par with this twin-headed ogre. Neither had the strength to kill the other. This made Nagran Vagris think of relying on outsiders to eliminate the twin-headed ogre. Of course, even if he made a request to Ruan Faxben and the others, he did not think that Ruan Faxben and the others could solve it. From his point of view, it would be best if he could attract the people behind them to make a move. But he did not expect that Ruan Faxben would directly throw this cunning twin-headed ogre's head in front of him. Nagran Vagris thought again. If it was the people behind them, they had entered Edinburgh's territory without him noticing. This meant that the other party's strength was not to be underestimated. After all, Edinburgh was his territory. However, the other party was able to come and disappear without a trace. If they could kill this twin-headed ogre without a sound, then they most likely had the ability to kill him too. This made Nagran Vagris wary of Ruan Faxben and the others. We have fulfilled your request. Now it's time for you to carry out your duty. Ruan Faxben smiled at Nagran Vagris. These 2 heads should be enough to intimidate the other party. You need to wait here for a while, Nagran Vagris said. I need time to translate. This Book of Prometheus was yours in the past. Have you not translated it at all? Do you know what the literacy rate was in ancient Greece? Does your question have anything to do with your translation of the Book of Prometheus? It's 0.1%. In that era, ancient Greece had a population of millions, but only a few thousand people could read. Most of them were spiritualists, and only a few were nobles. Nagran Vagris said. And those nobles only knew the simplified version of the ancient Greek language. I still don't understand. Ancient Greek characters contain a mysterious power. This mysterious power cannot be translated, and can only be identified through specific magic. In the past, when I had the Book of Prometheus, I only translated the simplified version. Only after I had a breakthrough in my strength did I realize that I had neglected the true content of the Book of Prometheus. How long will that take? I'm not sure, Nagran Vagris said. Identifying the mysterious Greek language requires a huge amount of magic. Chapter 1876. Does that mean I can translate the Book of Prometheus, as long as I master this recognition spell? Of course it's not that simple. You also have to master Ancient Greek. Recognition spells in Ancient Greek are both necessary. Then give me a specific time. It's a long process, Nagran Vagris said slowly. I can't rush it. But we won't be in England for long. I can't do anything about that. How about this? I'll inform my superior and ask him to invite you to our place to translate. Trust me, we can provide you with a stable and quiet environment. You can translate there without worry. Nagran Vagris's face darkened. Ruan Facilis was using this again. But this time, Nagran Vagris was helpless too. After all, he had received their payment. It was useless even if he wanted to go back on his word. Ruan Facilis had clearly predicted that Nagran Vagris would bring up the past again. He didn't give him a chance to go back on his word. This translation is really complicated. There's no room for mistakes. 7 days at most. If you can't finish in 7 days, I can only call my superior. You're making things difficult for me. But you're making things difficult for me too. Ruan Facilis had a smile on his face. He knew people like Nagran Vagris very well. If he didn't force him, if he wasn't forceful, he would be the one to take the initiative. Ruan Facilis knew very well that they wouldn't get Chen Zhao's support for this risky operation. Chen Zhao hoped that they would run into trouble halfway, and then return dejectedly. But Ruan Facilis and Lisa would definitely be punished by Chen Zhao. After all, they were the ones who started this. The only thing they could do now was to borrow Chen Zhao's power. They could only threaten Nagran Vagris with groundless threats. Nevertheless, Ruan Facilis wasn't afraid that Nagran Vagris would really ask for proof. After all, Blood Mary of Wendao 23 and Zhang Tianyi of Dragon Tiger Mountain wouldn't be exposed. They definitely wouldn't give themselves away. Plus, Ruan Facilis was very confident. Nagran Vagris didn't dare to really ask for proof. I can return 1 dragon tooth to you. Hand over the money, hand over the goods. There's no reason to return the commission you've paid. Ruan Faxi was a veteran. How could he let Nagran Vagris go back on his word? If Nagran Vagris really dared to break the rules, Ruan Faxi would really call Chen Zhao and kill this old monster, even if it meant destroying everything. A week is too short, Nagran Vagris said. It wasn't that he didn't have a way. He just didn't want to pay such a huge price. Use recognition spell to identify the ancient Greek characters in the Book of Prometheus. It required too much mana. If Nagran Vagris really translated all the content in a week, he wouldn't be able to do it. In that case, he would become a cripple. If the other party offered a high enough price, he could even stay in bed for half a year. However, the price that the other party had offered was merely to meet his standards. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to earn much. Why don't you let me bite this girl? And I promise to translate it for you in a week. Count, I don't like to joke around. I don't like to joke around either. The price you're offering isn't enough. What else do you want? Nothing. A month, Nagran Vagris said. It can't be shortened. 10 days, at most 10 days. Ruan Faxi only took a small step back. In the end, the two bargained for a while and agreed on 15 days. Nagran Vagris might be a noble, but he was very low-key most of the time. After all, to humans, he was an anomaly. He tried not to fight if he could. He also didn't want to have a grudge with others, especially when the other party's identity was unknown, and he was very powerful. Ruan Faxi didn't want to force him too much either. After all, he was just using his connections to intimidate others. Thus, both sides took a small step back. After Ruan Faxben left with his men, Nagran Vagris looked at the rubbing of the Book of Prometheus and immediately felt a headache coming on. Translating the Book of Prometheus was also a big problem. The ancient Greek characters were divided into simplified version and mysterious version. In ancient Greece, most nobles only learned the simplified version. The mysterious version required one to learn the simplified version and be proficient in special recognition spells. Then they could be translated with recognition spells. Before Nagran Vagris donated the original version of the Book of Prometheus, he had translated it once. But at that time, he wasn't strong enough and didn't have recognition spells. Therefore, what he translated was only a simplified version. Later on, he inadvertently mastered a special identification spell. It was only when he saw the original Book of Prometheus in the British Museum that he realized that he had missed out on something. But to activate the recognition spell, it required a huge amount of magic power. Nagran Vagris didn't think of translating it again. After all, it was a thankless task. But this time, he could only brace himself to translate. Fantas sent Raymond to Stephen's villa. Evan immediately dodged Raymond. He had seen Raymond before. But at that time, Raymond was just a small snake. Now Raymond was more than 10 times his size. Even though the smell was similar, Evan still didn't dare to approach Raymond. Stephen came out to greet Raymond in his big pants. Raymond dashed out of the container. Stephen and Raymond greeted each other. Raymond, I'm sorry for starving you for 2 days. Raymond curled up into a ball and ignored Stephen, sunbathing by the pool. Judging from Raymond's appearance, he was clearly holding a grudge against him. Stephen changed the topic awkwardly. Fantas, go get Raymond some food. Stephen also wanted a pet like Raymond. Not only was he smart, but he was also unique. Stephen sat beside Raymond. Raymond's cold body made him feel very comfortable. Raymond's body was also very soft. It wasn't as hard as leaning against a rock. Fantas also brought Evan here every day. Stephen also liked to rest against Evan's body. But different from Raymond's body, Evan's body temperature was quite high. It wasn't suitable for him to lean on for too long. Especially in LA in October, the weather was rather dry and warm. In winter, there was basically heating indoors. Stephen had a lot of trust in Ewan after interacting with her for so long. Of course, Evan was just a regular jaguar. He was still very different from the pets at home. Chapter 1877. Chen Zhao's family gathered together for dinner. Only Xian Li's seat was empty, but they still turned on the video call, so that Xian Li could watch them eat. Xian Li, how's your progress? Not bad. We found the original owner of the Book of Prometheus. But because the book is in ancient Greek, we're waiting for the translation. Ancient Greek? I know someone who knows ancient Greek. Do you need me to contact her? Chen Zhao remembered that the 23rd Blood Mary knew ancient Greek. If Xian Li needed it, he could help her contact her. No need. I want to find the golden apple step by step. Xian Li bit the apple in her hand. Is this your dinner? Chen Zhao asked. Is there a limit on that credit card? Do you need me to increase it? This is supper. Xian Li looked at the sumptuous dinner in the video and gulped. Uncle, you're tempting me to eat supper. It's okay. It's good to be able to eat, especially for a kid your age. Plus, if you get fat, I can personally arrange a weight loss plan for you. Sister Xian Li, do you have good food at your place? Jerlin asked. Xian Li's cheeks twitched. The worst thing about England was the climate and food. Edinburgh wasn't too bad. When they stayed in London, their jackets had to be waterproof. If it was a cotton coat, they would be a few kilograms heavier. As for English food, she just had sandwiches, burgers, fries, roast meat, and some vegetable salad every day. She'd even fantasized about trying world-famous food and looking up at the starry sky, but it was definitely not a beautiful experience of eating delicious food. Sister Xian Li, when are you coming back? Remember to bring good food for Jerlin. Jerlin looked at Xian Li in the video with big, watery eyes. Me too, me too. Little Larissa also shouted. She was still in Feilai's arms, but she was the most passionate about food. Little Larissa had learned many new words recently. She had learned a few common words. She had to admit that Larissa's talent in languages was better than Jerlin's. However, Jerlin's talent in swimming was much better than Larissa's. Did anyone bully you? No, uncle. Don't think the outside world is so dark. We haven't fought a single battle yet. Is it true? Chen Zhao asked casually. But Chen Zhao's tone gave Xian Li a lot of pressure. After all, Xian Li didn't know if Ruan and the others would report it to Chen Zhao. Actually, there was a battle, but I didn't do anything. That battle was to find and kill the twin-headed ogre. Riisa was the only one who made a move, so she didn't have the chance to intervene. Big sister Xian Li, Dad brought back a lot of eels a few days ago. They're very delicious. You have to come back soon, or else there won't be any left to eat. Little Galin said very seriously. Xian Li remembered that when Chen Zhao brought Didi around the world and arrived in Edinburgh, Didi had told her that the water monster they'd encountered in Vietnam's Mekong River was a super large eel. Xian Li, give me your address. I'll mail you some cooked eel meat. Uncle, it's okay. Apart from the taste, the eel meat can also increase your magic slightly. Okay. At night, Chen Zhao rose into the sky again for a day of cultivation. But before long, Chen Zhao was harassed by the American Air Force again. The Americans seemed to have figured out how to find Chen Zhao. Recently, he had been discovered by the American Air Force about 1/3 of the time. As a result, Chen Zhao never flew into the sky at his house. He would often run a distance away. Moreover, he would be in a different location every time. In order to prevent the Americans from figuring out his location through his movements, Chen Zhao didn't plan his activity area at all. Every day, he cultivated in a random location. But being harassed during cultivation wasn't a pleasant experience. Hey old Zhang, why are you calling me at this time? It should be afternoon in China. Am I disturbing you? No, I'm just curious why you're calling me at this time. Don't you sleep at night? Remember the divine hit you taught me last time? I'm in trouble. What trouble? Going crazy? You won't go crazy with the divine hit, right? No, it's just that every time I use it, I'll be discovered by the American military satellites. Then they'll chase after me. Then what do you want to do? Shouldn't you provide after-sales service? I have a way, but I can't move. If I do, I'll be exposed. What way? Are you coming to the Battle of Holy Glory? That's boring. Cut the crap. Are you coming or not? Let me think about it. I have a lot of business. My business isn't business. Yes, you have business too. But I'm really not interested. I'm asking your subordinates to participate, not you. I won't let you participate even if you want to. Then I'll choose a few people. One organization can choose 10 people, Zhang Tianyi said. Okay. Chen Zhao planned to just find a few random people to deal with them. Oh, the Mekong River's flood is under control. Your money has been donated to the disaster area, Zhang Tianyi said. You can create a water god so quickly? Chen Zhao asked curiously. The main thing is to find a powerful monster and give it to him. At the very least, it will be able to replace the original flood dragon in a short period of time. However, it will probably take a few years for it to completely absorb the inner core. Are there a lot of these mountain, water, and earth gods in China? Not many, and there aren't any mountain or earth gods, only water gods, Zhang Tianyi said. The big rivers in China all have water gods, but they're all managed by monster organizations. Monster organizations? The only officially recognized organization is the Monster Alliance. There are also some smaller monster organizations, but you're not in China anymore. Do you plan on coming back to develop? Forget it, Chen Zhao said. With my power, I can be a monkey king in North America. If I go back to China, I might be taken care of by some old monster that pops out of nowhere. But can monsters coexist peacefully with humans? I'm curious. Why not? Didn't you also have a demon blade as your subordinate? Chapter 1878. That's right. Chen Zhao smiled. His way of thinking was a bit extreme. Since he could raise a bunch of demons, why couldn't other people live peacefully with them? Plus, he'd accepted the demon blade's service. After interacting with the blade, Chen Zhao understood. Be it demons or demons, they all had their own feelings and thoughts. They weren't cold-killing machines. Their personalities were largely determined by their living or growing environment. How do I hide my aura? This is a method I developed myself. I call it heaven and man coexistence. It's to use a small world to hide your aura. Even when you're not moving, you can make your small world completely blend with the surroundings. Even the naked eye will have a visual deviation. How do I do it exactly? Chen Zhao asked. Have you tried to make your small world exchange spiritual qi with the outside world at an extremely fast speed? No. You can give it a try. Not everyone who has reached our realm can use this method, because increasing the speed of the exchange of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth means that the pressure on the body will be greater. I've cultivated the spirit bash, so my body is stronger than ordinary spiritualists. You're an enhancer, so you'll definitely be able to do it. However, that old witch Blood Mary can't do it. Back then, I taught her step by step, but she couldn't learn it. Zhang Tianyi paused, then added, It's like dropping a drop of oil into a basin of water. The oil will be very obvious in the basin, but if the whole basin of water is continuously stirred, then the oil will disappear from the field of vision. This is a visual deviation caused by physics. For military satellites, which can detect high-energy reactions, it's also effective, because the huge flow of spiritual energy of heaven and earth has disturbed an area. The military satellites can't detect you. That was the theory, but it wasn't easy to do. Chen Zhao found a region and tried this method. He started to speed up the exchange of spiritual qi. At first, he didn't dare to speed up too much, but he realized that it was just as Zhang Tianyi said. Chen Zhao didn't feel too much pressure. Then he doubled the speed of the exchange of spiritual qi. He still didn't feel uncomfortable. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. Chen Zhao didn't feel uncomfortable until he was more than 10 times faster. Old Zhang, how many times can you speed up? I can probably accelerate to about 5 times, Old Zhang said. Chen Zhao calculated in his mind. His strong body was indeed more advantageous. It was about 15 times the normal speed. Chen Zhao only felt a little uncomfortable. He didn't need to experience extreme speed, because Old Zhang's 5 times speed was enough. His energy was definitely higher than Old Zhang's, but his speed was still enough. Chen Zhao was hiding in the sky. At the moment, he was almost completely invisible. Of course, his invisibility wasn't complete. Actually, it was still visible to the naked eye. If the military satellites overhead happened to be watching him, he would still be discovered. But this possibility was even lower than the possibility of winning the lottery. How big is the Earth? Even if Chen Zhao waited for 100 years and gave the Americans a rough location, their military satellites might not be able to find him. Plus, Chen Zhao couldn't just stand there and wait. Even if there was a small probability that it would be discovered by the American military satellites, Chen Zhao could also change places. So Zhang Tianyi's method basically solved Chen Zhao's problem. Oh, Chen Zhao, you have an alchemist under you, right? You can ask your subordinate to make a magic tool that can hide your aura. When you face a strong opponent, you need to unleash your full power. But your aura might expose your true strength and make the opponent wary. If you have this magic tool, even if you unleash your full power, your true strength won't be exposed. Then the opponent will be numb. Have you used this before? Chen Zhao asked. I used it a long time ago, but after I broke through to Shangqing, I didn't have the chance anymore. Almost everyone in the spiritual world knows me. I don't even need to unleash my full power. My enemy will be on guard. Zhang Tianyi's tone was filled with disappointment. I don't know if my subordinate knows how to make it. It's not difficult, but the process is a bit complicated. If your subordinate says he doesn't know, he's definitely just brushing you off. You can teach him a lesson. Chen Zhao thought about it. With Ruan Faxi's personality, he would probably brush him off like Zhang Tianyi said. After a night, Chen Zhao learned heaven and man coexistence. After that, he wasn't harassed by the American Air Force anymore. It seemed like this move was really good. But Chen Zhao also discovered a problem. When he used this move, it would cause the air to flow violently. It was like a super typhoon. Heaven and man coexistence couldn't be used at home. Of course, it could also be used as a wind elemental attack spell. But for people like Chen Zhao and Zhang Tianyi, this attack spell was really useless. With their strength, this move was useless against enemies weaker than them, or enemies of the same level as them. It was impossible to defeat a powerful enemy with just a storm. Of course, heaven and man coexistence's effect was the same as wind elemental magic. It actually had nothing to do with it. In fact, this storm was just a byproduct of heaven and man coexistence. Chen Zhao's current 1,000-meter small world could almost create a small super typhoon. It sounded powerful and could affect the weather in a small area. But in reality, this move was also useless against normal people. Chen Zhao's abilities weren't used to create disasters for normal people. Chen Zhao's heart jumped. Since Zhang Tianyi could develop a use for the small world, there might be other uses for it. Maybe he could develop other uses for it too. But just then the sun rose. Chen Zhao put away God's strike and quickly descended. Because of the difference in altitude, he could see the sun in the sky, but it was still night down below. Because of the difference in altitude, he could see the sun in the sky, but it was still night down below. Using the remaining time, Chen Zhao moved around in the ocean for another hour. Only then did the sun rise. When Chen Zhao returned home, the underlings were already preparing breakfast. Seeing that Chen Zhao had returned, he immediately brought some prepared food to Chen Zhao. Chapter 1879. A while later, the family woke up one after another. Early in the morning, Portia came over. "Portia, you're really early today." Chen Zhao glanced at Portia, who had rushed over. "You didn't eat breakfast, right? Come and eat with us." Portia didn't stand on ceremony. She sat down and started eating. It wasn't her first time anyway. "I don't think I told you to come so early yesterday. I'm here for breakfast." Everyone stared at Portia speechlessly. Portia was very calm. "During the last interview, I maxed out my credit card to prepare the clothes for the interview." "You don't have money on you?" "I only have enough money for gas," Portia said calmly. "Do you want me to lend you some?" Chen Zhao asked. "No need. I plan to eat and drink at your place. I don't have any other expenses." Portia was determined not to borrow money from Chen Zhao. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to pay back the money she owed. To be honest, the cost of living in Los Angeles was really high. Portia decided to grit her teeth and persevere. "What about your water, electricity, and insurance?" "The water and electricity stopped a long time ago," Portia said. Unlike in China, even if one owed water and electricity, it could usually last for a few months. The water company and electricity bureau wouldn't necessarily cut off the water and electricity. In America, if you owed water and electricity for a month, the electricity company and water company would make you go back to primitive society. Chen Zhao couldn't imagine that kind of life. However, he wouldn't pity Portia. To put it bluntly, Portia was reaping what she had sown. It was obvious just by looking at her crazy spending when she was in Japan. Moreover, it wasn't the first time Portia maxed out her credit card for an audition. Chen Zhao never approved of pursuing dreams without caring about anything. To him, the prerequisite for pursuing dreams was to support oneself first. "Portia, are you sure you don't want me to lend you money?" "Boss, you sound like a demon. I won't lend you money again." Chen Zhao didn't borrow money for free. He had to pay interest. Portia's monthly interest on the money she owed him was $700 to $800. Of course, it was even scarier if the bank debt was included. Although Chen Zhao gave Portia a high weekly salary, Portia's salary was very high. However, with Portia's extravagant spending habits, she still couldn't make ends meet. In fact, with Portia's salary, she would be considered a high-income person in any country or region in the world. However, Portia still lived her life as a member of the Moonlight Clan. However, this was also the consumption concept of most Americans. Spend in advance, enjoy in advance. The price was a huge debt. Of course, Portia's spending couldn't compare to Chen Zhao's. But no matter what he spent, it was all in cash. Chen Zhao had a credit card, but he basically paid it on time. All of Chen Zhao's expenses were within the amount of his bank account. Of course, Chen Zhao would not criticize Portia, because they had different ideas. Therefore, there was no right or wrong. It was the consumption concept that was nurtured by the environment of the two countries. "Portia, help me make an appointment with Felwood Cisco. Ask him to come to Minghua Villa." "Oh, okay." Portia hurriedly wiped her mouth and stood up to call Felwood Cisco. But there was no response. After a while, Portia looked at Chen Zhao awkwardly. Boss, can you lend me $20? I owe my phone bill. Chen Zhao was speechless. He took out $100 in cash. Boss, I want to charge my phone bill. How do I top up if you give me cash? Never mind. Chen Zhao helped Portia top up her phone bill with $100. Hello, Mr. Fellwood. I'm Portia, Mr. Chen's assistant. Hello, Ms. Portia. How can I help you? Mr. Chen asked you to come to Mingyue Villa today. Are you free? I'm free, of course I'm free. Fellwood accepted without any hesitation. He did not care why Chen Zhao wanted to see him. Even if Chen Zhao wanted to chat with him, Fellwood would come. Fellwood came very quickly. Chen Zhao had not even eaten the table yet. Fellwood, you haven't eaten breakfast yet, right? Come and eat with us. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Fellwood had worked with Chen Zhao many times, so they were rather familiar. At the table, Fellwood Cisco asked, Mr. Chen, may I know why you called me here? I have a friend who wants your company to build a new house for him. It's my honor. Fellwood was very happy. Chen Zhao didn't just ask him to build his house. He even introduced his friend to him. This was a very valuable resource for him to build connections with. He'll be here soon. Wait a moment. Okay, I'm not in a hurry. Fellwood nodded. Wait here for a moment. If you need anything, tell Portia. I need to do some morning exercise. Of course. Please help yourself. Fellwood Cisco was no stranger to this place. After all, he'd built the house. Fellwood came to the front yard and saw Chen Zhao swimming in the sea. The children, on the other hand, were playing without any worries. This was the life of a rich person. Mr. Fellwood, would you like something to drink? Portia walked up and asked. I seem to have eaten too much for breakfast. Pour me a cup of black tea. Okay, please wait a moment. A while later, Portia came over with the black tea. Thank you, Ms. Portia. Is that Mr. Chen's yacht? It's so beautiful. The boss still thinks that it's small. He has another yacht that's being ordered. It costs more than $300 million. Fellwood Cisco gasped. That was way too rich. $300 million. It could probably be ranked among the top 10 yachts in the world, right? Although Fellwood Cisco was considered a rich man, however, most of his assets were in his company. His engineering company was valued by the bank at around $200 million. He had 60% of the shares, so his personal assets were more than $100 million. However, his liquid funds were less than $5 million. He didn't even have $1 million in cash. He naturally couldn't spend as much as Chen Zhao, not to mention the Hydra and the unfinished super yacht. The cars in the garage alone were probably worth more than $20 million. Fellwood also knew that the house's AI butler system would cost tens of millions of dollars. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.